So let's get start the session. A warm evening to everyone. We are really sorry about the slight delay. So the IEEE student branch of Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information Communication Technology is an ambitious group of students having the common interests of learning new technologies, along with spreading awareness and encouraging participation in this domain. The major portion of this goal is achieved through our annual technical festival, that is iFest, at DAIICT, organized by the IEEE student branch. iFest 20 aims at providing a platform for budding young students from across the nation to showcase their talent and inculcate the valuable skill of innovation. While the ongoing pandemic has slowed down the world, we plan to break the bounds by rigorously using the most advanced platforms to reach a large number of students around the globe while they're sitting in the comfort of their homes. The theme of iFest 20 is a virtual voyage. Voyage is all about a journey full of exciting moments and cherishing the subtle pleasure in escaping from our mundane routines. The theme revolves around the idea of fleeing away from the current terror-stricken situation and celebrating the most awaited technocultural days of the year, bringing in people together and not leaving any stone unturned in making virtual a fascinating reality. The events we have been organizing ensure coverage of various domains ranging from robotics to software development to business and finance. Along with that, we have an attractive array of fun events that entice the crowd and lead to greater involvement in the festival itself. We have over 20 events from 2 domains, and over and above, we're conducting informative sessions under the banner of the Open Box. We've had a session by Mr. Sumit Verma, who is reputed to be among the top coders around the globe. We'll be having today's session with a panel from ISRO members. And furthermore, we're having another event planned for tomorrow with Mr. Pavitra Singh, the CT of Sprinkler. Moving on to today's session, I would like to welcome the Director of DAIICT, Dr. K.S. Gupta and Professor Anurag Ghosh. Unfortunately, due to some issues, they won't be able to join us at the very moment. But Team iFest would like to extend the special thanks to Professor Ghosh for generously helping them in conducting this session by connecting them to our panel members, that is Mr. Nilesh Desai and Mr. Anurag Verma. To give a brief introduction to our director, Dr. K.S. Gupta. He's an Indian scientist and academic who works in the field of image processing and satellite communication. He's also served as the Deputy Director at Space Application Center, Ahmedabad, and the Director of the Development and Educational Communication Unit of Indian Space Research Organization. Also, unfortunately, Professor Ghosh couldn't also join us. He is currently serving as the Dean Students of DAIICT. He had worked with ISRO up till 2010 and had mastered the fields of soil science and agricultural chemistry. Professor Ghosh took voluntary retirement from ISRO, joined DAIICT to pursue academics, along with his research interest for the betterment of the society. Having said all that, I would now like to introduce you to our esteemed panel. First of all, we have a speaker.
Am I audible now?
Yes, we have Professor Ghosh with us. Yes, sir, you're audible.
Hello, Nilesh.
Good evening. With me, Anurag is there.
Yeah, Anurag. Hello, Anurag. How are you? After a long time. You are muted. Anurag, you are muted.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yes, sir.
I think we can start. We are already late.
Yes, sir. We just started with introduction. Sir, we would be really honored if you could say a few words.
Okay. I think at the outset, I must thank IEEE student branch for organizing this event. In spite of so much of problem and difficulty we are facing nowadays, because of the pandemic. So they are in a difficult situation to connect with the people. But in spite of that, it has happened. And I'm quite happy about that the zeal and the enthusiasm IEEE as the student branch has shown. This is an event, iFest is an event which is always been, students are looking in the campus. But this time we are off the campus. But still, the iFest is a hot cake for all other students to attend and to listen. And today, I'm really thankful to Nilesh and Anupam to agree to our request to talk on a topic which is very much on the table. human space mission. I think that is very much important, and we will be interested to know more about from them. We had worked in ISRO together for a long time, more than 20 years, and I know Nilesh and Anupam being there, and I'm sure they will be the right person to talk about it and make our students quite informed about this topic. Thank you once again accepting our request, and now the stage is open. Please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your kind words. We shall now begin with a brief introduction of our esteemed panel. We have first of all Shri Nilesh Desai. Shri Nilesh Desai is a top ranker and gold medalist of the 1986 BE batch Electronics and Communication of the LD College of Engineering, Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. It is about 34 and a half years of dedicated and illustrious engineering and research career at ISRO. She had been involved in design and development of its microwave radars and the realization of advanced and synergetic applications involving Earth observation, navigation, and communication technologies for societal benefits, governance, and strategic uses. Furthermore, he is an active and contributing life member of many professional societies like the Indian Society of Remote Sensing (ISRS), the Indian Society of Geomatics (ISG), Astronautical Society of India (ASI), and the Indian Society of System for Science and Engineering (ISSE). Presently serving as the National President of ISRS Executive Council and the Vice President of ISSE Ahmedabad chapter. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. Our second speaker is Mr. Anurag Verma. Shri Anurag Verma is a scientist and an engineer. He joined SAC in the year 2000 as a mechanical engineer. He got the second rank in the 1999 BE batch of mechanical engineering in the BVM Engineering College, Sardar Patel University at Vallabh Vidyanagar. He has worked for several spaceborne and ground projects in SAC. He has made significant contributions in various ISRO projects like ResourceSat 1, 2, HRSat, OceanSat 2, Chandrayaan 1, Ventenet projects, and a lot more. Therein he has contributed mainly in the fields of optomechanical engineering, robotics, and automation at SAC. Present is leading the development and project activities in SAC as an associate project director and the lead designer for ISRO's ambitious Gaganyaan project. He has also been awarded the Young Scientist Merit Award 2008. We shall now embark on a journey today with all our viewers to learn about the intricacies of the Indian space mission with a special emphasis on the highly coveted Gaganyaan project. I would now request our esteemed panel to kindly take over and take the session from here.
Good evening, everybody. We can start.
Yes, sir.
So, welcome to this session on Indian space program with special emphasis on Gaganyaan. So, I will just try to build up the tempo or what we call suspense before Anurag takes over with the intricacies related to Gaganyaan project and the work which we are carrying out here in Space Application Center Ahmedabad in Gujarat. So, I'll first, my portion I'll cover for half an hour into the other aspects of Indian space program, including launch vehicles and what other activities we do, so that you get familiarized. Almost all of you may be well aware of that, but it will be just like a refresher, and then followed by a brief overview on Gaganyaan project, which ISRO has embarked on last couple of years, and it is going to culminate hopefully in the 75th year of Indian independence. So let us now go through this journey. I'll just try to share my presentation. Are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The presentation is visible now.
Yeah. So Indian space programs towards self-reliance. So how, and Gaganyaan is one of the manifestation of our self-reliance. So let us go through this fascinating journey of Indian space program, how, what work we have done in last 50 years almost, and what is India's position as far as space is concerned. You are saying ISRO's headquarters and some of our campuses here. And as all of you know, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, he was our the great visionary. He was the father of Indian space program. And when he initiated this great vision for Indian space program, his idea was that we want to play a really meaningful role using space technology so that it becomes useful for the common man as well as society. And some of you may be wondering whether we are really on that path or we are slightly deviating from that. But I'll come to that. It is no deviation. It is the demand of the time, so that we have embarked on activities like Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, and now Gaganyaan. And incidentally, we just had the celebration of the of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai in 12th August 1919. So almost last whole year we celebrated his centenary programs related to Dr. Vikram Sarabhai and Indian space program. And it was a huge success. All over India, we carried out various outreach and other training programs. Of course, last couple of months we were hit by the COVID pandemic, but that didn't stop. We worked out different means of propagating the space activity related outreach. And incidentally, we started this program on 12th August 2019 here in Ahmedabad, because Ahmedabad was his birthplace or the birth of our Indian space program. Many of you may be aware that it was in PRL, Physical Research Laboratory, that Dr. Vikram Sarabhai started his great vision of Indian space program. So we started this function of his centenary celebration from Ahmedabad, and it was to culminate in Thumba or Trivandrum, where he ended his life in 1970. So in view of this pandemic, we could not celebrate the valedictory function, but we did it online. And in fact, incidentally, on 25th September, when we had this valedictory function of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai's centenary program, it was the start of the centenary program for Dr. Satish Dhawan. And all of you know, Satish Dhawan took over from where Dr. Vikram Sarabhai left as far as space program is concerned. So these two are the great visionaries. And of course, all of you know Dr. Abdul Kalam. And you are seeing at the bottom a very rare picture of having Dr. Kalam and Dr. Sarabhai discussing some finer points. So one was a great visionary, other was a master planner. Of course, Dr. Kalam served in different capacities at various places. So all of you are well aware, so I'll not dwell too much on that. This is ISRO. All of you know that. It is directly working under the Prime Minister's office. And like Atomic Energy and Department of Space, these two departments are directly put under Prime Minister's office, because any project, any proposals we take up, that immediately gets sanctions of the highest authority. That is the idea with which both of these programs were started. In fact, they were working together only. It was under one umbrella only. Atomic Energy and Space were working when Dr. Homi Bhabha was there. After that, Dr. Sarabhai took over. And after that, it was decided to split it as two different departments, Department of Space and Department of Atomic Energy. And today, both are working independently under Prime Minister's office. And there is a Space Commission which decides the overall program structure for the Indian space program. And now, as all of you would have read in newspaper also, after this COVID pandemic, government decided to open up the space sector, which was right now till now was a closed sector, mainly controlled by central government only. So now we want to make it like NASA basically, so that we want to involve more private players, more researchers, industry takes part in that. In fact, a lot of startup can come up and contribute to the Indian space program. So with that idea, the current government wants that it takes up more research activities instead of concentrating only on production of different types of satellites. So with that idea now, these two new verticals have been set up. One is NSIL, that is New Space India Limited. So that is like our Antrix Corporation. It is a public sector unit. through which ISRO will execute many of its programs. And the other one is InSpace, where that will work as a umbrella for as an interface with the private industries. So government's idea is that like in US or in European Union, the private industries play a major role. Almost they are equal partners in the space program of the national agencies. So something similar, we want to take it up. It is not going to be a very smooth or to say immediate affair. But once you start the process, it will take its own time. But there is a need to make a beginning, and that beginning has now been made with the setting up of these new institutions, which will right now work under Department of Space, but as independent entities. So this is how the now structure has evolved. And as the bottom you are seeing the 7 major centers of ISRO, they are the main centers. One of them is located in Ahmedabad, and the other unit, there are other several units which also contribute to different activities. Some of them work under Department of Space, some of them work directly under Indian Space Research Organizations. And on the right hand side, you are seeing the beautiful locations of all these centers and units all across the country. And as you can see, each of the center, each of the unit has their unique identity. And as you can see, this is India's map, a representative map. From that, you can make out that almost ISRO is present or Department of Space is present everywhere. So you don't have to come to Ahmedabad or you go to Trivandrum or Bangalore to work for ISRO. In fact, ISRO is coming to you people, to many of the industries, to many of the researchers, many of the academic institutions, so that you sitting at your place, you can contribute to various activity related to ISRO. So our idea is to strengthen the ISRO, academia and industry participation in the overall Indian space program. So with that idea, we have set up various centers, units, incubation centers, encouraging startups, encouraging academic institutions to do some of the phase A studies or phase A research activities. And in fact, for Gaganyaan, we have invited a lot of announcement for opportunity proposals, and almost we have received more than 200 to 250 proposals, which right now we are scrutinizing for funding. So that is how now ISRO has been working since last couple of years, and it is going to work now in collaboration with various academic institutions as well as industries. So that is going to be our main approach of work, which was not there till last many years. Now coming to ISRO's mandate, all of you know that we make launch vehicles or rockets, we make satellites, where Bangalore is our main center. For launch vehicle, Trivandrum is our main execution center. We have 2 major units located there, Vikram Sarabhai Center as well as the Liquid Propulsion Center. So they carry out 2 different types of activity related to rocket program. And the other major program is related to space applications. So as its name suggests, our space application center at Ahmedabad, all of you must have seen at least passing through the satellite area. So that is one of the major center, and it has its own uniqueness. I'll bring out that. So space application, especially related to disaster management, as well as various other remote sensing related activities, and application related to communication and navigation, they happen in this space application sector, apart from development of various sensors. So we had a recent launch on 7th November. All of you might have heard about it. That was our first indigenous launch this year. So despite this pandemic, people worked after the opening of the lockdown, people have worked relentlessly to accomplish this mission. And now we have almost total 188 missions. That is the count in the last 51 years. And there was a very interesting coincidence in 2019 that ISRO completed its 50 years. We were celebrating Dr. Vikram Sarabhai's centenary function, and at the same time, the country was celebrating 150 years of Mahatma Gandhi. So it was really a very strange coincidence. These 3 major events happened on the same year. So this is our report card. We had the recent, as I said, US mission. It was very successful, and it put a radar into the orbit. I'll come to that also. So this is the progress which ISRO has made. And if you, as I said, it started with the vision of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. that we want to help the society and common man. So with that idea, you are seeing this picture, Professor Yashpal, all of you know him. He has such a beautiful knack to explain any intricate or complex scientific or technical phenomena in a very simple word, so that any layman can also understand that. So that was his great communication skill. And under his leadership, we started the satellite instructional TV experiment. All of you are now familiar with tele-education or DTH and all that thing, but that those times in early 1970s and in 75 and 2400 remote villages of that in developing India at that times, if you have to connect them all together through a satellite using a American satellite DA-IICT, you can imagine the complexities involved in the country when not only even roads were not available, proper transport was not available. So we reached all throughout the country. All of the ISRO personnel were active in installing these 2400 rural villages, various TV sets, so that we can transmit a educational program related to agriculture, education, and various other important aspects related to society. So this was our first experiment with TV and what we wanted to do as an indigenous system. And as a next step, then we started what we call a STEP program, Satellite Telecommunication Experiment Project, after completing that site program. So these two are our main landmark programs which initiated the ISRO's or India's whole space program. And the STEP program was a precursor to, because all of you know, we wanted to build our own national satellite, Indian national satellite system inside. So as a first step, we carried out this experiment, and then as a second step, we hired an American firm, that is Ford Aerospace, and they were given the contract to build 4 satellites as a part of our INSAT-1 series of satellites. So these 4 satellites, out of that 2 worked, 2 didn't work, and there were reasons, technical reasons for why they didn't work. Because once we give a contract, they are supposed to deliver us the product which has to work. But due to our India's major requirements, we have put such a complexity on these satellites that really it was one of the most complex satellites at those times. And a lot of our engineers got trained in USA. They did the design and they were involved in testing also. And so that was the start of, in a real sense, our actual experiment with developing hardware. Now this is Space Application Center. I invite all of you as and when now the time permits and the pandemic is over to visit first our exhibition and then our center also. At a very opportune time we'll arrange that. So this is one of our main heritage building. So you see a 14-meter antenna which was built by NEC. It was then called Nippon Electric Company. So right now it is not under use, but we have kept it as our heritage venue. And same way at the bottom you are seeing this is our exhibition, newly set up. Almost last 3 years it has been working and it is worth seeing. So right now it is closed, but once this pandemic is over, you will get the chance to visit that. Please do visit. It is open on Saturday, Sunday also. Then we have these other 2 campuses. This is our main campus where right now I am sitting. And these 2, Bhopal and New Bhopal campus, they are almost 7 to 8 kilometers away from our main campus. And on the right hand side, you are seeing another heritage antenna and another heritage earth station. And that is not located in Ahmedabad, it is located in New Delhi. As you go from airport towards Prime Minister's house, in between there comes Sardar Vallabhbhai Marg, a forest area. So in that forest area, deep inside, almost 1.5 kilometers inside there, is located this Delhi Earth Station. And the heritage value is that Indira Gandhi used to go there and address the whole nation from this particular place those days. Nowadays, sitting at his home, Prime Minister can address you anytime through video conferencing or various other DTH and other means. But those times, late 70s and early 80s, this was the only place from where a Prime Minister can address the whole country. And here now, what you are seeing at the bottom is a vendor complex. Now, as I said, we are opening up for private sector. So we have developed this vendor complex where companies will come, set up their own infrastructure and work for us. This is the major activities what we do at Space Application Center. So it is not only, as its name suggests, applications, but we do lot of sensor development or payload development. And the basic activities are communication and navigation payloads and remote sensing payloads. And remote sensing payload, there are camera systems and there are microwave radar systems. So these are the major activities. I will not dwell too much into that because many things you may be aware and we have to embark on that. I'm just building up the suspense for you to know about Gaganyaan. So how the program started, now we are shifting our gears to do the human space flight mission. So communication, navigation, so whatever we are doing, payload development, and as you know, rocket is of more or less 1 or 2 types. Satellites are of normally 5 to 7 types. And payloads are of hundreds or 1,000 types. So that is the beauty of the work which we carry out at Space Application Center, Ahmedabad. So we have communication payload, navigation payloads, remote sensing payload. There are also microwave, optical, infrared, all sorts of activities that happen here, and corresponding application activities. So you can see why what I was trying to convey was that our center is a very unique center in a sense because it is a multidisciplinary center. So we have, as you can see from the human resource profile, which I have put at the bottom, that we have people from electronics background, computer science background, mechanical, hardware people, people who work in science, geoscience, biological science, professor like your Dr. Ghosh Saab, or hardcore technologies like Dr. Das Gupta Saab, and person like me, and Anurag is a mechanical engineer, I am an electronics engineer. So you can see a whole gamut of people of different varieties and different aptitude and different disciplines. They work together. So that opens up your vision. So that is the main unique USP of my center here at Ahmedabad Space Application Center. So it is one of the most multidisciplinary center among the whole ISRO centers. What 7 or 8 I have listed, the main centers. This is in that sense unique, and as you can see from the activities which we do, they are also unique. Now coming to the activity of ISRO, as you know, we work in space, but we not only work in space, but we start from ground itself. So we do many activities on ground. So as I showed you, that 2 major Earth stations at Ahmedabad and Delhi. So something similar now we are setting up Earth station almost everywhere, because any new communication or navigation satellite we launch, it requires corresponding infrastructure on ground. So that also is built by ISRO or with the help of ISRO. And many private sector industries are also now involved. And that opens up many research proposals for academic institutes like DA-IICT. Same way we work in airborne sensors also. So initially when we do some of the new research, first we try to test it with an aircraft platform. So like we develop our first radar, we first tested it on a Beechcraft aircraft, which initially there was a AN-32 aircraft, which was unpressurized aircraft, which worked at almost 1 to 2 kilometer height. And then we graduated to 8 to 10 kilometer pressurized satellite. Then you have payload controller, which will control the heart or the brain of the satellite is payload. As I said, payloads of thousands of varieties are built for different applications. So they are controlled by a payload controller. So that in turn interfaces with a flight computer. So like that, there is a whole hierarchy of control elements, processing elements. When a payload or a sensor is put, the data needs to be processed. So these all activities are taken care by the various electronic elements. And of course, antenna, you have different varieties. Whether if it is not passive, then you have active antenna, which will have its own what we call TR modules or electronic systems to support those antennas. So this in summary, command, data, pointing control, communication, thermal control, and overall responding to the commands which are given from ground. So that is mission control, and basic element is power supply, which provides the power to all these elements. These were the early birds. ISRO started as you saw with the ATS-6 satellite leased from USA. We started our site and step program. Then after that, we built our own 1975 Aryabhatta remote sensing satellite, Bhaskara satellite, then Rohini. Like that, we went, and through Apple was our first geostationary satellite, which was built as an experiment satellite. So as you can see, every 3-4 years, we are building almost one experimental satellite. But and then today, if you see our ratio, except for this pandemic year, we were launching almost one satellite every month. So you can see the progress made as far as quality is concerned as well as quantity is concerned. Now coming to the initial learning phase, like in satellites, we started with Aryabhatta Bhaskara experimental satellite for both remote sensing and communication. We started with this, our satellite launch vehicle. SLV 1, 2 were experimental ones, and SLV 3 was our first, although it was experimental, in a sense, it put the first payload, in a sense, in the orbit. And then it was augmented with a ASLV, or augmented satellite launch vehicle, and Dr. Kalam was spearheading all this activity initially. After that, he moved to DRDO and then to nuclear research. But before that, he was our mainstay, as you have seen in that earlier photograph also with Dr. Sarabhai and Dhawan, that he has been our main workhorse. He was almost working 18 to 20 hours a day in Thumba. And today, we are reaping the benefits of the hard work put in by Dr. Kalam and other people like Dr. Madhavan Nair and the whole team which was involved. Many unsung heroes are there. These two are well-known people who graduated to take up good positions in the hierarchy. Then we had this PSLE, and as you can see, this is our main workhorse. Almost, we just completed the 49th flight on 7th November, and 50th flight will happen on 7th December. So you can see every month now we are back to our own old hit ratio of one satellite per month. So PSLV is our main workhorse. It is almost like a tower, a building tower, almost weighing 295 tons, 44-meter height. So you can imagine the gigantic structure. And similarly, GSLV was our satellite, another workhorse for geostationary or transitional orbit. This is this launch vehicle. So as you can see, we started with SLV3, ASLV, now PSLV and GSLV. These two are our main workhorses. So rocket types are more or less limited. If you compare it with the capability of NASA or European Space Agency, like Arianespace, they have a 10-ton or a 15-ton capability of carrying payload, while right now we have achieved up to 4.5 ton. So that, as you can see in the GSLV, that sheet, 4.5 ton in LEO orbit. And GTO, we have 2 ton with a GSLV Mark II and with GSLV Mark III. It's coming up on your screen now. So this is our major workhorse, and this is going to be our major workhorse. And our Gaganyaan is going to be launched by this particular launch vehicle as such, but it will need some modifications. I will come to that also, and then Anurag will explain you more detail. So GSLV 3 is going to be now our workhorse as far as geostationary satellites are concerned, putting them in a transitionary orbit from which the orbit is raised to 36,000 kilometers. This is our Indian spaceport, and you will be surprised to know that this is one of the most ideal site for launching satellite. So we are lucky that Sriharikota, which is almost 185 kilometers from Chennai, it is an island which has been completely handed over to ISRO by Government of India. And there are, except for the aborigines, natives of that particular island, mostly all ISRO people only occupy that place. And this is the second most ideal site for launching satellites, whether it is a LEO satellite or a GEO satellite. So, as I said, we are lucky in that sense that we have a very good ideal site. The site position is decided by the amount of fuel required to put a satellite into the orbit. So, in that sense, we are lucky, as I said, and the most ideal site is French Guiana. All of you would have heard from where Arianespace launches its launch vehicles. So that is the most ideal site as far as launching satellites is concerned. And this ours is the second most ideal. Then left hand side you are seeing the Sriharikota island, which has been developed by ISRO, our Satish Dhawan Space Center. It is named after Dr. Satish Dhawan. It is our Sriharikota range. And center you are seeing the control center. So it is located almost 7 to 8 kilometers away from the place, the launch pad, from where the rocket is launched. And at the bottom you are seeing one more unique opportunity for people like you, for common men, that we have put up now a big stadium which can accommodate almost 5,000 people who can come there and watch the launch of any satellite or rocket. So now we have opened it up for common public. So it was on first come first basis. You can log on to our closed because of the pandemic, but shortly it will open up once this pandemic is over. So anybody can log into the website, and whenever launch is scheduled, we'll announce it almost 15 days or 20 days before the launch. You can log in and register your place there, and you can come and visit this launch in real time from this place. So this is, as I said, one of the most ideal location for launching, and this is the launch pads, as you can see. So all this, and as I said, that control center is located almost 6 to 7 kilometers away from these launch pads. So we have 2 launch pads. Now we are coming up with third one also in due course. So this is the whole infrastructure which has been developed as a part of ISRO's activities. And a great feather in our cap, almost as all of you were well aware, almost 3 years back we launched 104 satellites, which is a world record. So out of that 101 were from other foreign countries and 3 of our satellites. So these 104 satellites were launched at one go using our PSLV C-37 launch. And now, as I said, these 3 PSLV, GSLV Mark II, GSLV Mark III, these 3 are our main workhorses. And now we are embarking on, all of you must have heard about SpaceX and other activities they do. So in the same way, we have been working last many years on this reusable launch vehicle, or many of them air-breathing technologies. So all these technologies put together, we will also have our own reusable launch vehicle. At the time line is almost by next 7-8 years, by 2030, 2028 to 2030, we should be operationalizing this reusable launch vehicle, so that slowly we can do away with the expendable launch vehicle like PSLV or GSLV. So this, we can reuse this launch vehicle, so that's its name, it is reusable. So that will reduce the cost also, and it will increase the frequency also. Right now, as I said, we have a frequency of achieved almost 15 to 20 days per launch. Instead of that, now we can do it very fast, like SpaceX or NASA is doing. And this, we have carried out the initial what we call hypersonic test for this particular launch vehicle, and shortly within a couple of months we are going to do what we call a landing experiment, because any reusable vehicle has to come back. It is to re-enter and come back, so that we can retrieve those parts and reuse it in the next mission. So this is how the whole roadmap is there. By 2028 we'll have 2 stages to orbit. So it will be carried, this is the reusable launch vehicle on a 1 stage of rocket with a SC400 engine and cryogenic engine with 25 newtons. So with this, we are able to now going to launch this reusable launch vehicle in future. Now coming to the satellites, so all of you know we have this INSAT series after we did this experiment with Apple, and today we are working on what we call GSAT series. So earlier the names, because the launches were all happening from foreign launches using Ariane space, so they were named as Indian National Satellite. So satellites were built by ISRO and they were launched from a foreign soil, mostly from French Guiana, or some of them from Russia. But nowadays, now we are building our own satellites and launching through our own launch vehicles, GSLVs, as far as communication and navigation satellites are concerned. So we now call it a GSAT series. And one of the great example of our self-reliance and goodwill for our neighboring country is this particular satellite, which is called South Asia satellite, which was launched in 2017. And this was an idea given by our Honorable Prime Minister, that why not we develop a lot of goodwill with many of our neighboring countries and offer them this communication transponder services free of cost to them. So we launch a satellite with the many transponders where we can allocate 2 or 3 transponders to each of the neighboring, like Sri Lanka, Maldives, Nepal, Bhutan, all these people, all these countries. So with that idea, this was taken up. In fact, initially it was called SARC satellite, because all of you know SARC is a amalgamation of this South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. But and Pakistan is also a member of that. But initially when we tried to rope in Pakistan, so they participated, but they were creating a lot of hurdles. questioning the utility, why it is required, and creating various technical issues also. So after that, we decided that we leave aside Pakistan because they are not interested in using this satellite. They were only creating problems so that it get delayed. So with that motto, we were not able to reconcile with them. So they were dropped from this plan. So except Pakistan, all other SAARC countries are member of this South Asia Satellite Congregation, and we launched this in 2017. And immediately after that, Prime Minister conducted a video conference, and all of them appreciated this gesture from India. So that has created a lot of goodwill, because as all of you know, creating international goodwill is also very important. Similarly, now, as all of you know, we had INSAT and GSAT series, but now from last 1.5 years onward, whatever satellite we are launching, as far as communication satellites are concerned, they are all high throughput satellites. So instead of having a 36 megahertz bandwidth in a transponder, now we have shifted the gears, and now we are going ahead with a gigabits type of bandwidth. So right now we have these two. GSAT 19 was our first experimental high throughput satellite, and now in future, whatever satellites we are going to build as far as communication satellites are concerned, they are all high bandwidth satellite. Each transponder, instead of 36 megahertz, now will be having a capacity of 200 to 250 megahertz minimum. So that way, combinedly, they will achieve a high throughput rate of 12 to 15 gigabits per second. So GSAT 11 was one of our most heaviest satellite built up till now, which was launched last 1.5 years back. And then we have this mobile satellite services. So we have all of you heard about this ISRO Devas controversy. So this was that satellite. Now it is diverted totally for defense use or strategic purposes. So it is not available for commercial use. But shortly we are coming out with a new satellite, GSAT 32, which will cater to mobile communication. Like you have this mobile communication using your cell phones. So similarly, you will have with satellite phones this technology. So in summary, these are the various broad communications, disaster management, and tele-education, medicine, and meteorology. So these are the major applications which are catered to by the satellites. And as you can see, we have right now almost 15 to 16 satellites, 300 transponders. Next month, we are going to launch another satellite which will replace our disaster management satellite, which is now gone out of service. So that will be replaced with a new SAT-12R. So that will again add to this total scheme of things. And still, you'll be surprised to know that right now, even with this many satellites and this many transponders, we are able to do justice to only 70% of the country's requirement. So still, there is a scope for 30% of additional transponders. So that's why government wants that now this sector needs to be opened up so that not many private players and other people also can participate into this. Now coming to one other major activity which ISRO has taken up and now almost it has fructified. Some of your DA-IICT researchers were also involved in that. This is navigation. So earlier times when we want to locate say any place, your DA-IICT, we would ask a corner shop wala to find out where it is located. Instead of that, now we have this GPS based systems. All of you are well aware of the GPS in your mobile, and shortly we will have our own indigenous NAVIC system. So navigation with Indian constellation. So instead of asking a panwala for the location of your college or any other place, unknown place, wherever you are going, you can locate it on a globe to a country, to a state, then to an exact place, and go and reach your destination. So this is how the current Indian scenario is that we have two major navigation programs, Gagan, which is augmenting the GPS services. So it is called satellite-based augmentation services. So that will basically it is meant for civil aviation applications. And the other one is navigation with Indian constellations. So both have been now completed by 2015-16, and they are going to be operational. So this is Gagan. And the beauty of this particular system is that basically, as I said, it is meant for civil aviation. So the aircraft moving from one place to another. Right now, you must have heard, and this is the winter time, you must be hearing now quite often that due to bad weather conditions, mostly aeroplanes are not able to land or take off, especially in northern part of our country. So in Delhi or other places, they are not able to land due to bad weather, or when rains are there or weather is not good. So they are to be diverted to different places. Some of them are diverted to Bombay, to Ahmedabad, like that. So that will be thing of the past. Now with using this Gagan receivers, aircrafts, so instead of depending only on pilot skill or the category 4 instrument landing system on airports, because few airports can only afford such a very costly system which cost crores of rupees. So only Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, and Madras, they only have Chennai, they only have this instrument landing system of category 3 or category 4. So instead of that, now even small airports also will be able to help landing all these aircraft. So this is one major program ISRO and Airport Authority of India has initiated and completed now. Beauty is that when the plane moves from one place to another through various areas, through different countries, then same receiver will work seamlessly. Whether we are operating in USA where wide area augmentation system is there, or Europe where IGNOS is there, or Japan where MSS is there. So the uniqueness or standardization of this receiver, so that same receiver can be used for our activities is navigation. So navigation is Indian constellation. So more than hundreds of meters. So due to that, our soldiers had a lot of difficulties, and that has increased our casualties also. So after the government set up a committee at national level, and they decided that we should have our own navigation system. So with that idea, we have now developed this regional navigation system. So as you can see, in any navigation system, it is not only sufficient to orbit. So we have say 7 satellite GPS, almost 32 satellites. So it is, and then you need a lot of ground infrastructure to provide various correction factors to have a precise determination of the position. And despite using atomic clock on the satellite, so you can imagine the precision requirements of any navigation system, so that you achieve 5 to 10 meters of resolution of position on ground. So that will need ultra stability clock of like an atomic clock of this order of stability of 10 raised to minus 13 or 10 raised to minus 14. So, and then lot of ground infrastructure. And finally, your user receiver. So to simplify the user receiver, all these complexities are added on ground or in space. So this is how we have built up this 7 satellites. So there are 3 geostationary satellites and 4 geosynchronous satellites. And we are adding 4 more satellites. So and these are the various technologies we have developed, whether it is antenna, receiver, RF segment. So you can see we started with a very big receivers, and now today we have a single chip receiver like a GPS receiver. And as you can see, you just have a look at this block diagram. All of you are studying, many of you are in ICT. You may be aware that what you study as a part of your semester 1 to semester 8 semester course, whatever you study, all the subjects, almost everything is included in this small chip. A single chip dimension almost by 3 mm die contain almost everything, starting with antenna, RF front end, signal processor, embedded microprocessor, power supply, everything. So whatever you study in 8 semester, all your knowledge gets embedded into this one particular small chip, which is costing almost $1 to $2 only. So you can imagine the amount of density, high level of integration and miniaturization which is required to make any navigational chip. And that is the place, that's why we are right now, because our frequency allocation was some different band than GPS, and that's why we faced a lot of difficulty initially, but now we are ready with our own chips, and lot many industries have also come out with their own chip, whether it's Broadcom or Qualcomm and other people. And as you can see, in various, all the parts of the country, we are achieving a very consistent results as far as position accuracies are concerned. And as you can see, GNSS or GPS or Navic, it has applications almost everywhere. Almost 98% of activity which you do in your life, they are all governed or assisted by GPS. Now our aim is, the aim of Indian government and ISRO is that we have to replace GPS everywhere with our own Navic system. And if we cannot replace, at least augment it with a Navic system. So with that idea, we are now going ahead with this. And these are some of the typical governance applications. So this is a combination of navigation and communication, how we have achieved some of the pilot projects, and now it is now handed over to private sector for doing so. Next slide will show you the applications. Like we are tracking all the locomotives. So almost all the Rajdhani and Shatabdi expresses are now right now tracked by a combination of Gagan or Navik receiver along with our MSS satellite. So in real time, the movement of the trains, almost 15,000 trains move in the country every day. So you can imagine what is the population of Germany. That many people move daily in trains in India, and the tracking of all this train is being done through this particular Navik communication receiver. And something similar we have done for coastal surveillance. So all of you know Bombay happened 26/11. A foreign boat entered our coast and nobody was aware, and it created havoc. So now to avoid such scenario, we are now what we are doing similar what we are putting in a locomotive. Similar unit is put in all sub 20 meter boats which are carried by fishermen or low level applications, and they are being continuously monitored from a central place in Gurgaon, which is the headquarters of our Indian Navy, and they will regularly monitor the movement of all the boats. Almost 4 lakh boats are there in India coastal region, and at a time almost 1.5 to 2 lakh boats they move into the sea at different levels. So they are all being monitored regularly now. That is the plan of Indian government. We have started a pilot project, and that has been completed now in Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. Now something similar, when fishermen go out for fishing into the sea, they remain there for 7 to 10 days. So during that time, they also carry their mobile, but their mobile is useless when they are inside deep sea. So what we have done is that we would like to give them information about like this. They will be carrying this small Navik receiver, which will be giving them information about where they will get the better fish yields. So they go to that particular place, and so every day 5 o'clock they are given this advisory, which is communicated to them on their mobile in their native language. So that is again happening through our Navik satellites and through a small unit called Navik receiver, messaging receiver. So this is how we have been doing various activities as far as, and the ultimate is in Navik in your mobile. So that also, all of you know that in countries like Russia and China, it is mandatory that you use their own navigation system. You can use GPS, but at the same time your mobile has to be GLONASS enabled in Russia or Baidu enabled in China. So something similar we are trying to impress upon our government, that we should have Navik enabled mobile phones in India. So already Xiaomi Mi8 and some of the Samsung phones, they have come out with this pilot program where they have, in a high-end phones, they have this Navik now. But our aim is that in your future phone or low-cost phone also, now Navik will be there. Qualcomm, Broadcom, they have now come out with the chips, and shortly we'll have your mobile phones Navik enabled. So you'll be using Navik in your day-to-day life. Now coming to other major activity, remote sensing. So we have, as I said, optical and microwave radar systems as our major workhorse, and these are the various activities. So we have been a world leader as far as optical camera systems are concerned. All of you are well aware of that, so I will not dwell too much on that. So various satellites we have launched with a resolution from 1 kilometer to we have achieved now 0.3 meter sort of resolution nowadays. So this was our first IRS-1 satellite, which was, you can see the size of the camera, and today it was almost weighing 150 kg in a very big size. This was our first operational camera system in space, which was launched in almost 40 years back, 1988. And as you can see, from 1 kilometer resolution, now we have achieved 0.3 meter resolution with our Kato 3 series of satellite. So in last 40 years, from kilometer to sub-meter, we have improved upon the accuracies or positioning is concerned. And the camera sizes have improved from 150 kg to a camera on a chip. So you can see how technology as well as the system capabilities have improved as far as our remote sensing optical program is concerned. And we have satellites for almost all activity, whether land mapping, water resources, high resolution, cartographic camera. or for ocean applications and for weather studies. Similarly, for microwave also, you'll be surprised to know that that program also started almost together with our optical camera system. But it took almost 40 years for us to launch a radar satellite. The reason is that the radar technology being a dual-use technology, because it is associated more with military. But right now we have many civilian applications of remote sensing radars. So our main aim is remote sensing applications using radars. So, but this technology nobody gives you. So same way that took us a lot of time to develop our own indigenous technology. So it took almost 40 years for us to develop similar system which we graduated for camera system. And now we are almost launching every 3 to 6 months one radar satellite. So here you can see we from starting with a 100-meter resolution which we first tested on an airborne platform, as I mentioned. Today we have I said radar imaging satellite which gives you resolution again of the order of 0.5 to 0.3 meters. So, and all of you heard about these various military strikes which happen. So this radar satellite play a very important role as far as seeing at night. It has all-weather day-night viewing capability. So that is the major advantage of using radars from space. This is one of the radar images, and this is a false color composite. But as you can see, it also gives some different features from what you can see using a camera. The camera, one major drawback is if the weather is not good, there is cloud cover, rains are there, then you don't get good pictures like your normal camera. Same way radar can see through any cloud cover. And then this is one of the another program which ISRO has started in collaboration with JPL. All of you would have heard about this name, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So generally, it is considered to be one of the best aerospace laboratory in the world, #1 laboratory. They generally don't collaborate with anybody, but this is the first time they have done a collaboration with Indian Space Research Organization, seeing our capability for radar system. So this is going to be a joint venture between NASA and ISRO, with JPL being the main partner, and here Space Application Center is the main center for developing this radar payload. So they are developing a L-band frequency radar, and we are developing a S-band frequency radar. And the data will be available free of cost for all researchers. So it is going to be launched. Comes directly, it is not used. So you need to first convert it into a product, whether it is a data information product. So such activities also happen at Space Application Center. Similarly, we do a lot of applications. Dr. Ghosh has been one of the pioneers of many applications related to Earth observation. So we have almost a team of almost 100 scientists here at SEC Ahmedabad who work on various applications related to agriculture, forestry, planetary science, glaciers, snow studies. So you can see all type of activity we do here. So you can visit our websites, Vedas and MOSDEC, where you can see various applications, whether it is land, ocean, forestry, planetary, all sorts of activity, weather forecasting. So all these activities which research has been done by ISRO scientists, they are put on these particular websites, 2 websites. And these are some of the pictures where how remote sensing helps you in, say, damage assessment of crop before and after the cyclone. Similarly, tsunami when it happened in Chennai. So damage due to, so it is compared with the old image and the image after tsunami has happened. Then viewing Himalayas is impossible with a normal camera system, because as I say, it is always covered by cloud cover or there are rains. So you use a radar system to do mapping of the hilly regions. So these are again other applications of radar, whether oil spill detection, you can monitor your ship movement in Antarctica. So like that many applications happen, and this is how the synergy of camera system and radar system. So you can merge both the images. So what white spots we are seeing, this is a camera image, but due to cloud cover, you are not able to see what is beneath these clouds. So that can be taken care of by radar images. So you can superimpose both of them and generate the suitable synergy of the applications. And this is how we detected the breach in the river flying in Bihar, and we detected the breach in Nepal. Otherwise, you have to fly over Nepal, which needs a lot of approvals and all, which no country will give you. But here, flying in Bihar with a look angle, looking towards Nepal, we were able to find out because lot of floods come in Bihar due to the problems in Nepal. So this is how applications of radar for this, and this is how our meteorology application. All of you daily you see these pictures, cloud cover related and weather forecast. And in India, there is a joke that when our IMD forecast that there will be rains tomorrow, you can go without taking your umbrella because it is not going to rain. But it is very difficult to predict Indian tropical climates. So that's why all these anomalies happen. But we are putting lot many sensors. So in future, we'll be able to predict. So even NASA scientists or American scientists are also not able to predict Indian weather correctly. So it is not a question of our scientists not able to do that. It is because of the nature of the subtropical or tropical climate. It is a function of so many variables or parameters that it is impossible to predict weather correctly. And as you can see, the cyclone prediction has helped us a lot. Earlier, say in 70s, almost 5 lakh people died in one of the cyclone Bola. And today when cyclone comes, hardly any of you don't even notice it because they are of equal intensity, but there are hardly any human casualties. Say last year 25 or this year, since it was a very tough cyclone, so almost 100 people died. But few people also should not die. So that is our aim, that how we can save human lives through our other program. Now Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, all of you know that, so I will not dwell too much on this. So Mars mission was one of our most successful mission, and we were able to do it at the first attempt. No other country in the world could do it at the very first attempt. So this is how the major issue was, that we launched it in September, November 2013, and it was to reach Mars orbit or Mars orbit insertion after 9 months. So the major challenge is this propulsion challenge. So there is one big propulsion center unit. So you can do an experiment at your home, that your scooter, you fill up the tank with petrol and then keep it at home for 15-20 days and try to kickstart it after 15 or 20 days. It will never start. So something similar problem we faced with this Mars orbiter mission, that this fuel which we fill up for propulsion control, since we were to operate it after 9 months, because after 9 months it was to be inserted into the Mars orbit, so it has to be given appropriate propulsion or the escape velocity so that it enters into the Mars orbit. So if you have to reignite the engine that time after 9 months, the spacecraft has traveled for 9 months and the fuel, we don't know the condition of the fuel. So something similar to the petrol in your tank of a scooter. So we did all that experiment, did various additive mixtures on ground, because we had only 1 year to do all this total development of the whole mission. So only 3 months were available for doing this testing. So with the experimentation done for 3 months, we decided that we have now a good solution which will take care the firing of the engine after 9 months. So with that, and we had plan B also ready. So with that, this was the great propulsion challenge, and we were successfully able to do the Mars insertion in orbit of 400 by 80,000 kilometers. So this is how the Mars mission was done, and many of you will wonder whether why India succeeded at the first attempt and not other countries like China or Russia or even Japan. The reason was that JPL laboratory, with whom we have started this collaboration for radars, they were ready to help us. So we use their software for mission calculations. So sitting at Bangalore, our mission people used to log into the JPL computer and use their software to do all the mission calculation related to giving commands for this Mars orbiter mission. So that is how we work. Of course, they didn't give us free of cost. They charged almost 15 crore rupees for that, because in America, nothing comes free. But still, it was a great collaboration, and our success was also due to the collaborative efforts of many countries. And this was our first picture. Same way, Chandrayaan 1, all of you know that, so I will not dwell on it. So it was a great success as far as finding out water molecule, or the what we call hydroxyl molecule. And if you can see, there were only 3 payloads from our Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO. Rest all payloads were there from other countries. And now we embarked on Chandrayaan 2 last year. and all of you are well aware of that. So we had a great success as far as orbiter is concerned, but there was a failure as far as lander is concerned. We could not succeed. Of course, we had a hard landing on Chandrayaan 1 also. We threw a camera system which traveled for 22 minutes and captured the image of the moon during the 22-minute mission. But this time we were targeting soft landing of the Vikram lander. But unfortunately, when it was almost 2 kilometers, 2.3 kilometers away, it crash landed. And we are studying the various reasons for that, and shortly we will come out with the solution of that. Of course, we have started working on Chandrayaan 3. Now, this is how Chandrayaan 1 to 2, as you can see, almost all the payloads were indigenous payloads as far as Chandrayaan 2 was concerned. And this was how the whole activity started, that when at the height of 100, of course, there was a change in this landing sequence. So these were the various sensors, camera as well as radar. They were used for it to guide it to a proper place. Only during, as I said, during the descent phase, last 2 kilometers, there were some anomalies due to it. So this was the homogeneous. As you can see, we were to land on the South Pole. Now this is one of the most hazardous regions. There are a lot of boulders and craters there. So we have to find out from this. We have selected 2 basic sites of 1 kilometer by 780 meters. So it would have landed on the main targeted site if everything would have gone perfectly as far as propulsion was concerned. If it would have somehow missed out site number 1, then it would have selected site number 2. So that was our plan B. And if that also would have failed, it would have gone on an autonomous landing. So all of provisions were there as far as sensors are concerned. But as I said, due to some propulsion issues, so we are almost nearing the solution, and in Chandrayaan 3 we'll have a very successful landing. We are very confident that if it would have landed successfully on, as you can see, there are a lot of boulders and craters on this particular southern pole where we are supposed to land. And this way, this 14-day mission of our rover would have worked if everything would have gone perfectly well. But we are hopeful that in Chandrayaan 3, which is going to be launched next year sometime late, so we'll be able to achieve this particular. So as far as Chandrayaan 2 is concerned, our orbiter is working very fine. Everything is perfect. And almost it was supposed to last for almost 9 months. Instead of that, now it will work for almost 7.5 years. So that is how the fuel has been economically used. So it will prolong the overall life of a particular orbiter. There are 8 sensors which are all working perfectly well. Camera systems, radar systems are particularly for ISRO, but still we have launched this satellite from Arianespace in French Guiana. Then just 2 months before that, we have a Cartosat 3, which is one of the most highest resolution camera system which we have. Then again, there are 2 radar systems which are there. So these are all having strategic values also. So that protects our strategic areas. And this you can see the particularly radar images and camera images of such a high resolution, 0.3 to 0.5 meter. So they are serving the all natural causes. Now coming to just a brief overview, after which Anurag will take over. So this is now one of our flagship program which Prime Minister has announced, is Indian Human Space Flight Program, Gaganyaan. All of you know we have Rakesh Sharma or Sunita Williams or Kalpana Chawla, but of course Rakesh Sharma was an Indian military man, but he traveled from a Russian cosmodrome. Similarly, Kalpana Chawla and Sunita Williams, they are US citizens. They were used, and so our aim is now what Prime Minister has announced on the 72nd Independence Day 2018, that we will have our own launch, our own human space flight mission from our own soil, and our own Indian astronaut, they will be put into it, and after 5 to 7 days of doing experiments, come back and again land on the Indian soil. So now all activities have started. Our aim is to do it before 2022, 15th August. Of course, it is a very tall order, and it is not going to be easy. We'll see how we progress on that particular front. And before that, of course, as you can see, I gave you the example of radar system, which we took almost 40 years to develop our own radar satellite. Now you can imagine within next 3 to 5 years, we have to do this Gaganyaan mission. Of course, now ISRO has a lot of good heritage of technology development. So this was one exercise we did, space capsule recovery experiment. So something was put into as a satellite, then it re-entered the atmosphere and landed in sea, and that was recovered and tested. So that has worked very well. That was our first space capsule recovery experiment. Then in 2014 we did another experiment. This was our maiden flight of Mark III launch vehicle. So instead of taking it to geostationary transition orbit, we took it to almost 80 to 100 kilometers, and we called it X mission. So it was a CARE mission, so a crew module atmospheric re-entry. So this crew module was launched up to 126 kilometers, then it re-entered the atmosphere from 80 kilometers, and finally it landed 180 kilometers from Andaman Nicobar Island. So that was also safely recovered, and various aspects, the thermal protection system, everything was studied, so that we learn from all these experiments, so that when we do embark on our actual crew mission, we have good mastery or good confidence. So this is now going to be our Gaganyaan configuration. So you have what we call a crew module and a service module. So crew, what you see at the top is a crew module, where it is the working area of the astronauts. So as Indian astronauts will be maximum 3 astronauts will be there. This is like a satellite. So basically it is equivalent to a satellite system only. It is called service module with all thrusters and other things. And together it is called a orbital module. So that will right now almost weighing 7 tons. We are looking at various options to lower its weight so that it can be safely carried with sufficient margin on our GSLV Mark III launch vehicle. So as I showed you earlier, the GSLV Mark III, it can carry 4.5 ton of big satellites in a geostationary or LEO orbit or geostationary transition orbit. But this being a almost 275 to 400 kilometers sort of orbit, you can take more weight also. But all these permutation and combination studies, and keeping in mind that this is going to be a human flight, so first preference is given to the safety of human beings. So all that thing which is called human rating. So this is how they aim. Next few years, we want to carry 1 to 3 astronauts in a LEO orbit. LEO means around 275 to 400 kilometers. We'll decide that. Mission could be up to maximum 7 days. So it could be from 3, 4, 5 to 7 days. It will having a crew module and a service module. So till the time it is moving in the orbit for the 5 to 7 days, it will have both the things. And then when it is re-entering the Earth's atmosphere and landing, that time it gets separated out, and it will land on mostly on the Arabian Sea near Gujarat coast, Viraval coast, or as a second option at Goa or Bay of Bengal. So this is how the whole various options are being studied and getting finalized. So this is how it will move during its orbit in this 5 to 7 days before landing. So this is a summary, and anyway, Anurag will give you more details. So from 120 kilometer to 400, it will be raised. Then 5 to 7 days, it will have its mission where it will remain in orbit. It will do some experimentation. The astronauts will carry out and try to survive in this atmosphere. And finally, there will be re-entry, and that crew module will be properly deaccelerated, parachute deployment, and finally splash down or in recovery. So once it lands, our target is within half an hour, 20 minutes, we should be able to reach to that place and bring them back. And the mission doesn't end as it landed. I'll come to that. So this is how the whole profile has been charted out. As far as technologies are concerned, as I said, this is a crew module, so it is like your working room. So it will have all the facilities which you have in your room, whether it is cabin lighting or communication systems. Then there is space suits, and then the service module will provide what all facilities we have in a normal spacecraft, something similar. Apart from that, controlling the environment in this crew module. So all sorts of sensors, monitoring various gases, oxygen level, everything, and accordingly controlling the environment control system. And the one major requirement is 100% within the limited time to satellite. Will take help from other countries also. So all in all, we will try to achieve this 100% communication. Of course, there will be some blackout periods and other things. As far as technology elements, you can see various crew module, service module related avionics system, networking system, communication system, audiovisual system, then integrating all of things and providing adequate redundancy and protection. And of course, there are a lot of science studies also involved in that. How crew will behave, what will be their psychological behavior, what will be their physical or biological status. So all that bioastronautics, how they'll be performing with a spacesuit. So all these things, many of these science aspect also needs to be studied in the parallelly within the same time. Similarly, developing various engineering and technology element, they are going to be another challenge. And all these things, our target given is 3 years. So that's why it is a very tall order. So in summary, you can say, when, as I said, the mission doesn't end with the re-entry into the atmosphere. And when it is re-entering, all of you know, if the angle of attack is not perfect, lot of heat is generated. Even that Challenger or that Discovery, Columbia shuttle disaster happened. One of the tiles got disembarked, and that created the whole destruction of the Columbia space shuttle. And similarly, Challenger shuttle exploded at the launch pad itself. So we have to be conversant with all the technologies which can take care of any eventualities. And finally, when splashdown, as we told, which is to be recovered, and after that, the crew has to be put in quarantine and rehabilitated. So these are all going to be major factors. After that successful rehabilitation, only you can say that mission has fully succeeded. And as you can see, reliability is one part, redundancy, providing dual, triple, quad redundancy. So any system is either normally our satellite we duplicate the system. Now there is a need to triplicate, because if you dual system and both are active, you will not be able to decide which one is right or wrong, where there is decision making. So you need 3 systems, so that majority decision you can take. So like that, many aspects are involved at various places. Of course, reliability is a hallmark of any space mission. Similarly, now one major factor has come is human rating and certification, which are not there in our normal satellite-based system. So these are again new aspect, because anywhere where human life is involved, it has to be human rated. So till now, ISRO expertise or ISRO way of working is for developing technology elements and engineering aspect. Now we have to concentrate on the human-centric or safety-critical aspect. So that is going to be a major paradigm shift as far as working methodology is concerned and qualifying the systems are concerned. And as you can see, so many technologies are to be developed of different type. Even a parachute has to be qualified in such a way that it safely lands our system. And one of the most major requirement to start with, when the rocket is on the launch pad and the crew is inside. So the moment crew has entered, they are put inside the crew cabin and the doors are closed. The mission has started for us, although it may take 1 day, because the countdowns will start before the launch. Now the first technology is to be tested in any human spaceflight mission is pad abort test. If something goes wrong on the launch pad itself, and that is what went wrong on the Challenger space shuttle mission. That on the launch pad itself it exploded and 7 astronauts died at the launch pad. Here now, what is to be done is that if we find some anomaly, as I said, in Sriharikota it will be launched. We are sitting at control center, which will be 7 kilometers away from the launch pad. Now, if some anomaly, like the last Chandrayaan-2 mission, we found that helium leakage. Something similar, if we find out, then we have to launch the mission only and get the crew escape module to operate. So what will happen is the mission will be launched and the crew module will get separated at the height of almost 2.6 or 2.8 kilometers, and from there it will splash down near the Sriharikota island itself in the sea. So this technology we have tested it already in 2018. Again, we are going to test it within next 3 to 5 months. We have one more experiment related to this pad abortus. This I'll skip. So we have a lot of international missions. These are some of our facilities. So in Space Application Center, Ahmedabad. So if you get chance to visit us, we'll show you all these facilities which have been developed. When you want to develop any space mission, you need to do vibration testing, thermovacuum testing, integrating, assembling all the circuits. So they have to be done in clean environment. So all these things are there. And what is going to be future is space tourism, space colonies on moon or at different planets, and our own space station. Already ISRO chairman has announced space station. And you may be knowing that just recently on 2nd November, we completed 20 years of inhabiting International Space Station Alpha, which is there. Of course, India is not part of the space station, but we'll have our own mini space station. That is what has been discussed. We encourage a lot of student activities with space clubs, space merchandise, space tutors. We are organizing various space events, exhibitions, and such outreach program like we are doing today. Of course, we encourage intensive training program for you people. And of course, developing your own satellites. So student satellites, till now we were encouraging developing small CANSAT or micro satellites of 10 kg or 15 kg weight. But now the trend is that we have this PSLV, our 4th stage. On this, we can put your sensor or payload. So you can develop a payload which will put into this 4th stage of our rocket. And this, when it is launched, this 4th stage is raised. It comes back into the Earth, re-enters and burns out. Instead of that, it will be raised to orbit from 275 to 400 kilometers, and it will remain there for 3 to 6 months. And you can do your experiment putting your payload there. Apart from that, we do a lot of R&D activities. We have our own sponsored research program which your faculty members can participate, and students can take part as attached to your faculty members and work on various research projects of ISRO. So you have to give your proposal. Your faculty members of the institute, they can submit this collaborative or sponsored research proposals, which we examine and then approve funding for that. And in that, students can work. And similarly, now we are developing a space technology incubation center where we encourage the development of startups. So students who are in last year can develop their own startups. So initial funding can happen through ISRO for the last year. They can take up some technology of ISRO and develop it further, and then it can graduate to their own startups. So all in all, we are doing great activities, and of course, thanks to we have a very good leadership. Whether it was early leadership of Sarabhai and Dr. Rangan, you are Mr. Kiran Kumar and Dr. Sivan now, and the main reason is whatever available resource we try to work within that with a great team spirit, high integrity. People are highly motivated. So we don't pay you much money, but being a government organization, but we give equal opportunities to everybody, and it provides a lot of motivation working on such high-tech area, working for the country. Further, you can visit our exhibition, and many books written by our ex-scientists, and many other people have worked out many details. So as I said, we have been doing a lot of work which helps society and common man, but although Sarabhai said that we don't have any fantasy going to moon or planet or manned space flight, but today we are doing exactly that. But that is the need of the hour, because India aspires to be a superpower, if not a superpower, a regional power. So for that, we need to acquire various technologies. So thank you all. I leave it to
Thank you very much, sir. I want to thank the student chapter of IEEE for giving me this opportunity to be with people who are interested in space science. This is really significant for the nation and its future. I would be touching upon the aspects of Gaganyaan. The introductory brief has already been given by Desai, sir. I'll take it forward. Let me share my presentation here.
Are you able to share? Yes, visible.
So I'll start with the communication system first. Before that, working with ISRO in terms of technology or a project has always been exciting. But I would say it has never been so exciting when I started working with Gaganyaan with a team of 19 plus people. And under guidance of our associate director Nilesh Desai sir, we have been able to start couple of technologies and leading them right now, which will go towards a human spaceflight project for us, which is Gaganyaan. So first of that is the communication system. We are responsible for two category of activities in Gaganyaan. One is the communication system, and another is the cabin system. These are the two technologies which pretty much associated with the human-centric nature of this mission, and this is being done for the first time because humans as payload are being deployed on space mission for the first time. So when we talk about the communication system requirements in Gaganyaan, typically we see two verticals. One is the communication between the machine and the ground command center, and another one is the communication between the humans and the command center. Now the left part, which is communication with machine, has always been happening because we always had the satellites in orbit. But this right part is getting added for the first time here in Gaganyaan, and that is what makes it more crucial as well as more exciting. So typically why we need this kind of activity is because the audiovisual communication is the most natural way for anyone to speak. And this is practically what we are doing and demonstrating right now at this very moment. So we need to add audio primarily, aided by video. And nowadays we need HD video because a simple old TV like video is not acceptable in today's world. We also have the provision to transfer the text just in case of emergency. And of course, there will be a lot of data being generated on board which needs to be transferred. So this is the typical scenario we need to address to when it comes to communication in Gaganyaan. So what are the typical aspects or challenges that we need to meet when we say that we need to complete this scenario for a human spaceflight mission? The first is we need to address various phases of the missions. So I will talk about what phases we are going to see. Second is the continuity. Now we all have experienced that how it feels when we have communication going on and off. So a continuous communication, predefined communication, and its continuity, which typically is identified as the visibility, is of essence. Third thing is the reliability aspect. So when I say that I'm going there and I will be able to call you up, it should so happen that after reaching there, uh, I'm identified that there are no towers there. There is no communication availability. This should not happen. We must be having a very reliable link of communication between all the points of interest. Third thing is data rate for the video. So when you talk about the coverage of the video for the events, it must be a good video, and we want a very high data rate to be supported there, and there is no upper limit to that basically. So talking about the phases, first phase is the pre-launch phase. Just before liftoff, the astronauts enter the cabin, and at that very moment itself, there is a start of the mission. Now this can prolong from few hours to maybe a day, depending upon various circumstances and parameters. And during that period, we do want a very solid communication, audio, video, and machine communication as well. Then comes liftoff. So this is the phase of ascent, and until we have reached the orbit and we have shunned all the parts of the rocket, we call it ascent phase. And third phase is the most significant or the vital phase of this entire mission, which is in orbit phase, where we stay for 5 to 7 days. The typical ascent phase is mostly complete before 20 minutes. After the completion of our in-orbit activities, we tend to come down, and that is called deboost phase, which goes to the descent phase. So moment velocities are cut down, it automatically starts coming down, and following the trajectory, it has to go through a descent phase. This phase also has its own unique aspects, which I'll be discussing a little later. Fifth phase is after splashdown. Once you have landed successfully, you need to be recovered successfully again and then rehabilitated. So this recovery also needs a way of communication. So we need to identify all the possibilities of all five phases of this mission where we are able to establish a successful communication. So if we talk about pre-launch phase, what will happen is people are already sitting inside the crew module. You can see right on the top of the rocket, there is the crew module. This crew module is accommodating astronauts there, and there are communication devices, typically the antenna, which is mounted on the outer surface of the crew module. The problem here would be that crew escape system is already mounted over this structure, and that will give a little bit of mm, issue in the communication, for which we need to figure out how we will be allowing the link to be established. So what we do typically is we take another set of antenna in active or passive system, put it there so that the link is followed through the transfer antenna. So this is one aid through which we are able to again establish a communication. After liftoff also, the crew escape system remains in place for a while, and the same method of communication continues until the crew escape system has been taken away. This is typically an omnidirectional coverage, which is facilitated through an S-band communication. It needs to be omnidirectional because once you lift off, the orientation of the rocket and thereby the crew module or the orbiter, it continuously changes. So when it is changing, you need to have a communication between point A and point B available all the time. And for that reason, we don't have a pointed system there. We need to have an omnidirectional coverage. So as soon as the crew escape system is separated, we have a direct link either through ground or through IDRSS, which I'll be talking about a little later. So once we have reached in orbit phase, the S-band omnidirectional communication anyway continues, and it continues to serve through two ways. One is the ground communication, which is a link between ground stations and our orbiter, which is seen in the picture in the orange color. One more link is added here, which is called command communication, which I'll be talking about in the next slide. So I say that the S-band communication has to be covered through ground. These are the green lines is through which the orbiter is traveling. So when the orbiter is traveling over a specific point on Earth, we need to have a reception center in the form of a ground station to be available there so that we have a link of communication. In order to cover the entire globe or the entire orbit, this is the scenario which we need to address to. These many ground stations are required. You see our country, India, it's just a small patch which actually is going to support this mission with two or three, max three of its ground stations. All other ground stations practically lie out of our own country. It's not very easy to have access to ground stations established by other countries. And the fact is that most of the countries do not have the ground stations because they are not up to that technology. So this is another difficulty that we have to face. Third thing is there is no land in most of the regions where the ocean is being covered. So there, the way out is shipborne terminals are deployed, but this is not a very easy affair because you are dealing with an international territory. So what it ultimately concludes is that in order to have 100% visibility for the communication, we need to figure out some other way by which we can support this system. Otherwise, it will be a Herculean task to have these many communication terminals being available for us. So the way out is here. The data relay satellites help us, for which what we do is India is planning to have two such satellites to be placed in orbit before Gaganyaan, so that these satellites would act as mirrors for the communication link. And instead of sending the information directly to the ground, we shall first be sending the information to these satellites, one of them, and then the satellite would be redirecting this whole sequence of information towards the ground station which is available. So the number of ground stations requirement is going to go down with the availability of these two satellites. And we practically with two such satellites get 90% visibility. Rest of the part can definitely be covered by other strategic applications. having the international ground stations to our access. So this is showing the coverage area being given by these two satellites, and you can see that most of the region is definitely covered for Gaganyaan. So we talk about two communication bands. One is S-band communication, another is Ka-band communication. The S-band communication is by nature omnidirectional and by requirement as well. Typically, it's a low data rate system. It goes up to 2 Mbps, but it has got very high reliability with good link margins. And it can carry any kind of data, whether it is telemetry, telecommand, it's audio, or it is video. Of course, the video quality would be little less than expected because we have a limitation of bandwidth here, because we are trying to send the energy in all the directions. This communication link is available by major phases of the mission. Communication system hardware was sitting in the crew module, which is the upper part of the orbiter module. On the left hand side, you can see, which is in the orange color. The bottom part is service module, and this houses the Ka-band communication. The Ka-band communication is with a pointing antenna, gives you a great deal of gain, and by which we can have the advantage of having a very high data rate. We can have a high data rate of upwards 4 Mbps, and that can easily support an HD video quality. This will be possible only in orbit phase. The reason is that pointing antenna has to be deployed, and it cannot be deployed unless we have already reached the orbit. At the same time, this service module will be jettisoned before re-entry, and because of that, we'll lose the Ka-band communication system. So this is limiting its availability through the in-orbit phase alone, but that is sufficient because the purpose is to have high data rate communication, and 5 to 7 days is the duration of this in-orbit phase. This only communicates with the IDRSS. The next phase is the descent phase. People say that this is the most critical phase in terms of success of the mission, because trying to come back again with a great deal of velocity, few kilometers per second, and then you have to touch down. So the reduction in the velocity is done by generating the energy in the form of losing the kinetic energy in the form of heat energy, and this aerodynamic braking causes a lot of plasma around the body. It also increases its temperature. In order to save the entire system from these high temperatures, we have to have a very efficient thermal protection system. So generally, silica phenol type of materials are being used, which was referred to as tiles. And these systems will work on the ablative system. And what they do is they try to sacrifice the material by having a high enthalpy region, and because of that the system which is inside of it, the metallic structure, is protected. In terms of communication, what happens is this plasma shield around this structure covers the communication antenna as well, and the nature of this plasma contains very high energy electrons, and because of that there is no transmission of electromagnetic waves through the shield. And because of that, we have a condition during which we are not able to communicate. This is typically identified as a communication blackout zone, and it is typical for any human space flight. It is expected there are ways to overcome it, but usually it is dealt with by, rather it is we have to bear with it. Once we start entering and reach a point where velocity has been coming down to a threshold value, then this phenomena is off, and we are able to re-establish the communication. Usually what happens is the moment we lose the height below say 10 to 7 kilometers, the availability of ground terminals for the line of sight is lost, and because of that we need to add shipborne terminals right in the vicinity of the point of contact, so that as explained by the mission does not end just at the point of touchdown. The mission has to continue at least up to the point of recovery, successful recovery, and communication again is required at that point of time. So what we have is the normal mode of communication practically is not possible because of lack of line of sight. We need to identify where exactly they have landed, and this is being done by receiving the details of the coordinates of the touch point. We use Navik receiver there. This generates the precise location information, which is again transmitted to satellite using a location transmitter under EHO beacon. The COSPA SARSAT series of satellite, which is a typical search and rescue network, it is always engaged with this kind of communication system and gives the data of exact coordinates to the ground station as well as the rescue team directly. So it helps identify. See, what happens here is it is very easy for a nominal mission to visually identify where they have landed. We are not very far off. We always can make out. But under non-nominal missions, which is typically an emergency case, there are scenarios. For example, instead of daytime, you happen to land during nighttime. It may also happen that instead of the pre-designated place, we are going to land in international waters. So under those circumstances, definitely these things would be of essence and we need to have it on board. Same way, in order to aid the recovery mechanism, we also have a visible flash beacon. So as I said, during night time in non-nominal missions, we need to have a way to identify visually. This is also an aid for the post-touchdown scenario. After there is a provision of satellite phone. So when they have landed, the way to communicate further is satellite phone, and satellite phone has a global coverage, which is its biggest advantage. And we take the here, and communication can be either while it will be giving the information of position. The right hand side was conventional system, but on the left hand side is ASIC based system, and the new ASIC we are going to give is going to reduce entire hardware to a greater scale. This is UHF. As I said, the COSPA SARSAT system has got a coverage. On the left hand side it is shown, and this is the way to identify where exactly the location of landing is. Same with the satellite phone, there are possibilities of having an in-house satellite phone, because satellite phone is just a concept. It is not the hardware in itself alone. So we can either have a sat phone with the typical global coverage. This is, I can say, is the summary of entire communication system for Gaganyaan, where we have on the left hand side the points where data is actually generated, which is the audio system or the camera system. Then this data goes to the audio video processing unit, which does multiple activities onto this data. For example, combining the data, packetizing the data, putting security codes into it. After that, it goes to a carbon transceiver or S-band transceiver, as the situation may be, and then it is transmitted either directly to the ground or via IDRSS, the data is transmitted. This entire scenario can be divided into 5 phases, as we have just discussed, and there are various tones and colors to this communication scenario as the phase changes. This is something very typical of Gaganyaan, where we talk about personal communication system. So what so far we have seen are the larger, is a bigger picture, but typically when it comes to a human, the communication system start point would be the mic and the speaker. And mic and speaker is not exactly the way we would see it. This is in the form of a Snoopy cap, because it has to facilitate communication without touching the aids. It also has to accommodate these systems into the spacesuit. So it has to be a two-in-one kind of concept here, and that is why these kind of arrangements are more necessary. These communication system also needs to have a noise cancellation mechanism. Why it is required is because we may be under impression that space is probably the calmest place, but the crew module is not. And the reason for that is you have got n number of systems working and running all the time within the crew module. For example, the blowers are putting in air. There are pumps which are running the ECLSS system, which we'll be talking about in a while, and things like that. Under those circumstances, we need to identify how we are going to talk without any interruption. So we need to have a good noise cancellation system where there is a microphone already inbuilt into the system. This microphone picks up the surrounding noise. The data is taken, inverted, and then it is being used for digital cancellation of the data which is landed into the speakers. So this is the typical scenario of personal communication system. Apart from that, caution and warning itself is a system which has to address various aspects during the entire course of mission. So there will be an audio warning system, there will be a visual warning system as well, which will be available in the Blue module. Let's move to the cabin systems now. Cabin system typically are the ones which directly has an interaction with the human as astronauts. And the most essential one is the environmental control and life support system. So whenever you talk about human spaceflight, this is the first system that could be talked about in any mission scenario. Why important? Because it keeps people alive on board. There is no atmosphere, Earth-like atmosphere naturally present there, which means that we need to engineer our systems in such a way that such atmosphere is available for them. We don't want astronauts to wear masks with oxygen cylinders all the time. What we need is an environment which is home-like, and it doesn't give any feel that they are in space as far as the primary parameters are concerned. So the left side is showing the list of the primary activities being done by any ECLSS system, and the foremost is oxygen supply. So what we do here is we have got oxygen tanks on board, and we need to maintain the oxygen in a certain limit, which is prescribed as safe. Second thing is there is a continuous addition of CO2 by exhalation by the astronauts. This CO2 will continuously increase its concentration if you don't do anything about it. So ECLSS also takes care of the additional CO2 which is coming out. Third is humidity control. You may have experienced humidity has to be within a comfortable range. If it is too less, then there is discomfort caused by skin irritation. There is also a possibility that sparks can happen. If humidity is too high, then discomfort is again identified. There are filters and for the cleanliness. The air continuously removes the dust particles, the lints and things like that, though atmosphere is taken to make sure that there is no such sources of this kind. Another significant aspect is pressure control system. However tight the system could be for leakage, you will always have some finite leakage available in any system, which means that with time, the pressure of the cabin will drop. Under unforeseen circumstances and things when they go out of control, you need this all the more. So pressure control system, what it does is it tries to maintain the pressure under a comfortable or acceptable limits by adding additional air, not oxygen, but air to the habitat volume. Same way temperature control, we are talking about an AC equivalent system here. Fire detection and suppression system is not something that we desire, but they are essential. I'll be talking about this little later because we are directly working on it. Same way gas sensors, PTH, I'll be talking about. Bio-waste is something which has got sensors mounted over it, which stays connected to the body of the astronaut and keeps tab of various vital parameters, health parameters of the astronauts, and gives regular updates on the ground station. And doctors are always present whenever people are in space in the orbit. Personal hygiene, you can actually go to YouTube and have a video by Sunita Williams done in ISS, and she gives you an idea of how the personal hygiene is maintained. And I personally think that this is one big engineering challenge. So these are the aspects of ECLSS. It pretty much takes care of daily direct and indirect needs of a person, and I would say it keeps them alive. So what role as a SAT we are playing here is in ECLSS, first is the environmental monitoring system. So environmental monitoring system is actually a collection of multiple sensors. These sensors measure the data of various parameters, process them, and then sends them to an ECLSS controller. Now ECLSS is said to be system of systems, and the reason is that it is actually taking care of so many parameters. Some parameters are in closed loop, for example, the pressure, temperature, oxygen. What you do is you measure the level of oxygen, give that data in real time to the ECLSS controller. If the value is going below the threshold, then a valve is opened and oxygen tank content is released into the habitat volume. And the moment you have identified by the sensor that the level, the upper value has reached, automatically the valve has to be cut off. So this is a system which is always in loop and working, and that is why it is the most crucial one. Anything going out of order would can actually jeopardize the entire mission. Same way, pressure also works in closed loop, and so does temperature. There are other parameters like CO2, CH4, methane, ammonia, the humidity level. These things are essential, but not typically under closed loop. You can figure out why methane and ammonia needs to be measured when people are on board. So the configuration of this entire system here is shown in the 3D model on the left hand side. All the sensors on the topmost card, then there is a processing card, and on the bottom there is a power supply card. So what we're doing here is we are consolidating the requirement of measurement for ECLSS into one package, making it smaller, and then giving the entire data through one bus to the ECLSS controller. Now, I can say from my experience of last 2 decades in ISRO, we have always worked towards identifying our systems to be most efficient in terms of mass and power. But Gaganyaan has been the most crucial one, and the amount of being efficient, or the requirement of being efficient in terms of mass and power in Gaganyaan has never been seen to this extent. So here I have to identify ways by which I can reduce and reduce the size, reduce the mass of this entire system. Basically, I'm talking about miniaturizing the entire system without losing the functionality. This is the EMS requirement. What is supposed to be done by the EMS? So it is supposed to measure all these parameters. It is supposed to measure them within these ranges and with this resolution and this sampling time. As I told earlier, pressure, temperature, O2 and CO2 are in closed loop, and we are supposed to give this data to ECLSS controller. Now, as explained by Desai sir earlier, the redundancy part. We don't carry one system for the purpose. We carry multiple systems for the same purpose, just for the sake of taking care of the failures. So if one system goes out completely or it starts malfunctioning, we will have other systems working for us. So here also EMS, since it's a measurement system, we go for a triple modular redundancy. The value of pressure measured by this system A, system B, system C will be matched, mapped by ECLSS controller, and there will be a voting amongst the three. And if one system is identified as rogue value, it will be rejected, and other two values, average of that, will be taken. Things like that has to happen. In case of complete malfunction, we still have other two systems working for us, so that the mission can be taken further successfully. So depending upon the criticality of any parameter or a system requirement, we need to identify how many such systems should work in parallel. There is also a concept of hot and cold redundancy. What it means is that some systems which are really damn critical, needs to switch in real time, will always be working, right? So that is called hot redundancy. There are other systems where you have time to switch between systems. In that case, you can save power by keeping other additional systems shut off and work with only one system. Here in EMS, since being a very critical system, will undergo the implementation of hot redundancy. So next point is that when we define within what range it should work and to what extent we should maintain these parameters, how to decide that. So this is decided by the human tolerance limits. So when you talk about pressure or the relative humidity or even say temperature, the human comfort and its safety is of significance and reference. So there are various sources by which you can identify what should be my range for each of these parameters. And for that, there are various agencies which are which has given these references for our use. One of them is the SMAC, which is from NASA. SMAC is the spacecraft maximum allowed concentration for any gas. So here, methane, ammonia, and carbon monoxide data is being shown here. What you can see here is that carbon monoxide, for example, if you are exposed to carbon monoxide for 1 hour of 425 ppm level, then you are still safe. But this ppm level reduces to 100 if you want to have a safe limit for 24 hours. Same way, if it is for 7 days, it goes further down. what we need to do here is that when we know that our mission is at least for 7 days, I really can't tolerate 425 100. I need to stay at 55. So this is where the range of the sensor is identified, and by that we do the configuration of the system. On the same lines, PPO2, you can see that there are various exposure levels for durations that changes along with the duration. In earlier times, when they started with Mercury program, they practically were trying to put 100% oxygen, and because several mishaps had happened, catching of fire. Then after that, the scenario was changed, and they started having natural air concentration, which means that around 20% oxygen and rest is nitrogen. It is also called synthetic air. Same way, the carbon dioxide, you can see if you are below 0.7 ppco2, below 0.7, it is you can stay within that safe limit. But as this concentration increases, the duration, the safe duration of staying within this concentration also changes. Then OSHA is another agency which gives us the data about the safe limits. This is Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Same way, NIOH, National Institute of Occupational Health by India, also has similar data ranges. This identifies how what should be the nominal parameter value for each of these parameters of significance. Coming to the sensor technologies, in EMS, sensors are the most significant piece of hardware. So when you say I need an oxygen sensor, there are options available with oxygen sensors. There are technologies on which, different technologies on which these sensors work, and one of them is electrochemical technology, another is the optical technology, which we have picked. So each EMS is actually equipped with 2 oxygen sensors of dissimilar technologies. So this also aids in reducing the probability of failures, because failure mode will not be repeated. So in electrochemical sensor, typically what they do is there is a chemical present there which forms a battery, and this battery has changed electropotential in the presence of oxygen, and this potential difference is directly proportional to the concentration of the oxygen. So that is the way by which electrochemical sensor works. It's an active sensor that way. In case of optical sensor, they have RUDPP, which is ruthenium complex. It's a chemical, it's a material, works on a fluorescence quenching in the presence of oxygen. And because of that, we are able to detect how much oxygen concentration is there in the vicinity of this sensor. So what we have started now is, these are the sensors available in industrial grade, and we are able to convert them into space grade by doing various modifications into these sensors. At the same time, we are also developing our own optical sensors because we have certain experience from our previous missions, and these kind of activities are taken up now so that we really become indigenous in these technologies, and in a way we are trying to fulfill the requirements of Atmanirbhar Bharat also. So idea is to work towards a direction where most of the components are of indigenous technologies as time passes by. Same way, there is NDIR, non-dispersive infrared sensor. What it does is, it has got, you might be aware of the fact that each gas has a specific line or a wavelength that has better absorption compared to other wavelengths. So we take advantage of this characteristic of CO2, and 4.3 micron is the absorption band for CO2. What we do is, we send an infrared light which has got broad bandwidth, and out of that 4.3 micron spectral filter is put against one detector. What it measures is only this light, intensity of only this light. So if the presence of CO2 is there in the path of this light, the CO2 will absorb this wavelength, and there will be less energy falling onto the absorption detector. At the same time, the reference detector is kept little away from 4.3 micron spectral filter. So this will give only the total energy which is falling there. In a way, a mathematical ratio of these two values will directly tell you what is the concentration of CO2 there. As I told you that there is an effort towards developing indigenous sensors, and semiconductor complex in Chandigarh, which is sort of a wing of ISRO. They have developed a couple of sensors, and one of them is the pressure sensor, which we'll be using in Gaganyaan. There are other sensors under development through IIST, which will be measuring oxygen and carbon dioxide. Even carbon monoxide also is included in that. And these sensors will be completely indigenous, developed within our own country. Same technology is now extended to a variant of EMS, which is called handheld environment monitor. What happens is, if you go to microgravity scenario, the inhaling and exhaling process is not same as what we see here. What happens is the CO2 does not get dispersed across the entire habitat volume. It sort of accumulates around the astronauts. So over a period of time, you have more concentration of CO2 around yourself compared to the nooks and corners elsewhere. So this is of essence to make sure that you don't have CO2 pockets. They call it CO2 pockets. So this is done by a device which can be held in hand and can be taken around to measure what the scenario is. On the same lines, this thing is also useful for other tasks like identifying possibility of fire in some region, because fire invariably generates some of the gases after combustion, which can directly be detected through these handheld devices. So on the left hand side, what you see is our first prototype. Second prototype is work is on. This is version 2 on the right hand side. Actually, the third version also is about to be released. So we will not be realizing version 2, we'll be directly going to version 3. And that hopefully would be our last version, and that is going to fly. So now what has happened is, for so many years, we were working in a project mode where we were realizing a huge payload. But now we are working where we realize products rather than payloads. And these products have got its own challenges, features requirement, and many other aspects are new in this. I think that is what makes this entire project more interesting. We can have all the example of the sensors, but unless we calibrate them, it's of no use, because if a sensor is showing 24% of oxygen when it actually really is only 18%, it is going to give a catastrophic effect. So it is of essence that we do a very well-defined calibration for each of these sensors. There is a concept of cross-calibration. What it means is, in the presence of oxygen, my CO2 value is getting affected. My CO2 measurement is also a function of oxygen concentration. So that cross calibration also will be required for the entire EMS system. So what we are showing is a chamber developed for this requirement. And here we have supply of various gases. We are able to change the parameter of PTH, that is pressure, temperature, and humidity within the chamber. When we calibrate this, we are using atomic mass spectrometer. The calibration of atomic mass spectrometer also is of essence. Why? Because we will be going through a certification process, as explained by Desai sir earlier. There's something called human rating. Whenever you want people on board an engineering system, the engineering system has to go through certification process to make sure that it is safe for humans. And the certification process will look into the human rating aspects. So this demands that we go through a systematic calibration process which is traceable, which means that the setup which we are going to use for calibration also should have been referred through the national standard laboratory. So we have established a complete mechanism through which we are able to trace every system and its calibration to a national standard. Coming to fire detection and suppression system. Now, we really wish that there is no fire, but we should be prepared for the worst. So I'll explain how this entire scenario is tackled. But before that, we must understand when you have already seen what fire is, but the fire in space is way different. It is no way comparable to the kind of fire we see on Earth. The reason is very simple. The lack of gravity actually causes the phenomena to change in a big way. What happens is there is no buoyancy, so the product of combustion remains around there. That changes certain aspects of this fire. The visibility reduces. You can see here on the left hand side you have a bright flame, on the right hand side it is bluish flame. So detection itself is a problem there. We also have a slower combustion. The soot that is generated is rare and the soot particles are larger, And there are many other aspects which would show how the fire would be different in space compared to the one which we have here. On the right hand side, what you see is a typical fire triangle. So in order to have fire, you must have these three things together: oxygen, heat, and fuel. In other words, if you want to douse a fire, you can take out any of these three things, and that will not allow the fire to propagate. So what we do is, as I told earlier, prevention is better than cure, means don't allow anything which will act as fuel on board. Make sure every system is in such a condition that it doesn't become source of heat. Oxygen, you can't do much about it because there are people on board and you need to have it. We have ensemble of sensors to detect the fire, and we have to have fire suppression system just in case. If nothing works, then there is the final word, total evacuation. So what they do is, if everything has gone out of hand and nothing is working, then the astronauts get inside the spacesuit, and then entire cabin is evacuated. There won't be anything there. In the absence of oxygen, any fire has to come down, and then either the system is repressurized again, or they have to simply come down on Earth. That would be a sort of end of the mission in that case. Now, having said that, the biggest problem with the fire detection system would be false alarm. Now, what happens is you have got a great system in place, but for some reason it went off and it is showing fire, although there is no fire. In such case, what you will do first is you will try to abort and you will come down. Now, just imagine if you had a great deal of mission in place, everything was going fine, and just one false alarm and you have jeopardized the entire mission. So what it means is we need to have a very robust decision making process before we say fire, 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 right? And that is why we don't have one sensor which is able to detect some sort of indication of the presence of fire and it gives an alarm out. No, it doesn't work that way. What rather we do is something else. And before that, I would like to show this thing here. This is the picture or the video of how a fire sustains in space. Now, this is not a jellyfish. This is how the entire phenomena of fire is taking place under microgravity. This is way different compared to what we would have in ground. So the scenario of fire can be explained in this way. First is we have a source of heat. There has to be heat to start fire. The heat gets converted into smoldering. Smoldering means you don't have a flame, but still there is smoke, which means that the chemical process of burning has started. Once the smoldering takes up further, it gets converted into flame because the temperatures have gone up, and now you have got a visibility in the form of a light. And when the flame is full-fledged and taken up by flash points, it gets converted into a full-fledged fire. So these are the stages. Now what we want is, we want to map every parameter, the way it changes from first stage to the other, and we want to make sure that we detect the fire as early as possible and take corrective actions in that instance itself, so that it doesn't propagate further. In order to do that, we have a couple of ways by which we can have indication of fire. This data is then processed through an algorithm, and that algorithm finally decides whether there should be an alarm for fire or not. As I said, the initiation point is heat, so you must have heat detectors. Luckily, what happens is most of the space systems are already equipped with a great deal of bunch of temperature sensors, and you are already getting that data. This data is identified along with this algorithm, that which zone is showing what temperature. Apart from that, in addition to it, we also have thermal camera, which by non-contact means can tell you the temperature of the surfaces. So wherever you don't have this thing, or rather give a synoptic view of this entire crew module, you can have thermal camera placed at some places. This gives the temperature data. Second is smoldering. Smoldering will generate smoke. So smoke detector will give you the idea of presence of smoke there. Third thing is flame. So we should have flame detector. And apart from that, whenever you are having a chemical reaction, there will be outcome in the form of various gases. So trace gas monitoring system is already in place in the form of EMS. So we only have to take the data to decision algorithm, put them together and identify that there is a fire. We also do zoning for the entire habitat volume so that we can identify where exactly the fire has occurred. And depending upon the zone, the type of fire can be identified, and based on that, what kind of sensors should be there also are identified. So this slide gives the idea of how the zoning is carried out. This is a flame detector. It's actually a photon detector. It's very sensitive. When we carried out certain experiments with fire, what we found is that a small hole of 1 mm diameter, the sensor was kept around 3 meters away because that's the maximum size of the habitat volume. You can't go beyond that. Even it detected a fire which was seen by a 1 mm opening. It can also detect sparks. So if you take the gas lighter and put it against it from 3 meter, as soon as you spark it, it will be able to detect there was a spark. So electrical spark is another source of initiation of fire. So this is able to detect that as well. Coming to smoke detector, the working principle is very simple. You have an IR LED, which is source of light. You have a photodiode, which can detect the IR energy. But what you do is you put a baffle between them so that there is no direct impingement of this energy from source to destination. There is no line of sight here. Now what happens is in this control volume, as soon as we introduce some soot particles in the form of smoke, these soot particles will typically scatter the light which is falling onto it, and because of that some light will start reaching the photodiode. And this energy, as soon as it crosses a certain threshold, we can say that there is presence of smoke particles there. Now here the challenges would be that you can have some particles floating around in the form of lint or in the form of dust particles. Now what is the way to differentiate between them? Because most false alarms are because of the presence of dust particles. Though we don't expect that to be a dusty area or particles being there, there is still a way to identify it where we identify that size of this particle is characterized and it is being used as data because mean scattering is identified based on the particle size, and the choice of wavelength also is determined by that, and that way we can eliminate the possibility of false alarm in smoke detector. These are the essential hardware elements within the system. So basically you have a laser diode along with its collimator to form the light path, and against that you have a photodiode which will be baffled by mechanical system. We are not able to see the things inside, but this is the hardware after it takes the shape. Coming to a way by which we can douse the fire, that is fire suppression system. So typically so far people were using chemicals, CO2 and other means, halon gas as fire fighting means. But now the new technology has come which is called fine water mist based fire suppression system. So it is actually water being used to extinguish the fire, but it is not the same as you would have seen being done by the firefighters. There the water remains as liquid, whereas here what is done is a pressurized system forces the water to pass through a nozzle, thereby it is atomized and very small, of the order of 60 to 100 micron water particles are released as if water is in the form of a gas, and that does the magic. Now what it does is it takes away the heat in that region, and due to dilution it also reduces oxygen concentration. So it is actually a gas which has got very high specific heat, and thereby it can actually cool the entire environment in a very short period of time. And if you take water would be very inefficient in taking away the heat. You need lot of water to do the same job because the surface area of the water would be very less when it is in the form of a bulk. But whereas when we have divided it into number of small particles, molecules, then the total surface area has increased. And because of that, we get a great deal of advantage in terms of efficiency in fighting the fire. So major advantage of this kind of technology would be that it is non-toxic. Just imagine when you want to put CO2 in a habitat volume, what will happen? We did so many things to make sure by ECLSS that CO2 level doesn't increase, and suddenly now we are due to fire fighting it. So the cleaning process after the fire is doused also is of significance, and here in this case there is no practically cleaning required. The biggest question that is asked when we talk about this technology is what with electronics? People expect that there will be a short circuit. No, there won't be, because as I said earlier, this technology actually converts the water molecules into practically a gas form, and because of that, there won't be any short circuit because there won't be any bridge connected between the two. I would say electrodes of any electronic circuit. So that is the advantage primarily of this technology, and based on that, this is the system that is developed, which we call as a fine water mist based fire suppression system. So what it has inside is, shortly I can say that there is a titanium bottle which contains highly pressurized nitrogen, and within that we have got a bladder full of water. So bladder is surrounded by high pressure nitrogen. It is always under pressure. As soon as I click the nozzle, this water tries to come out along with the high pressure nitrogen and does the atomization. On the right hand side, what you see is a way to characterize this entire system, because you need to identify the exact size of these water particles coming out. If water particles are really very small, what will happen is they will simply evaporate as soon as they come out. If particles are too big, then the chances of electronic short circuit is in place, because you don't want water to go there, you want small molecules of waters to travel. So you need to do an optimization in terms of size of these molecules, and because of that requirement, we need to identify how these particles are coming out. So this is a laser-based system which will do the job. Keeping lighting system. Now, lighting system is pretty much a very simple object to talk about, but here I would like to show that even that has got a great deal of significance when we talk about a human spaceflight mission. So I'm talking about two kind of lighting system. One is direct light, which is typical in every house. Second is indirect light. So when you go to the theaters, what you see is on the walls, there are lights which are not actually seen as source, but there is a diffusion. So this indirect light has got some advantages. You never see the source here, and that is why you never get the fatigue for the eyes. We are also going for indirect lighting for Gaganyaan. Second is mode of lighting. So there is something called circadian rhythm. Our body, as human, has evolved through lakhs of years for a specific way of life, and that is a sunset at certain point of time and sunrise at certain point of time. So we are used to having seen this mechanism of changing the intensity as well as changing the color. You might have noticed in the morning the color of the sun is different, noon it is way different, and in the evening again it turns red. So on the bottom, what you see is a color palette. The way Earth is seen, on the left hand side, it starts with a dark, then it is turning a little yellowish red, goes all the way white, and then again going back to the reddish yellowish region, and then again it becomes complete dark. So this actually controls the circadian rhythm. If you don't maintain this and always stay somewhere around a lighting condition which is equivalent to a 12 noon condition, then the body produces melatonin all the time, and it never allows you to go into a sleep mode. It always keeps you active, and that after 2 or 3 days doesn't allow you to relax, and it creates a lot of health issues as well as psychological issues. Nowadays, it is very common to identify that if you're using your mobile phones, the blue light filters are recommended. This is typically what is being talked about here. So what we have identified is that we can also maintain a circadian rhythm for the astronauts in a way where we have got sources which is changing not only the intensity, but it is also changing its wavelength. So our engineers are working in this direction, and they have identified that the intensity and color, corrected color temperature, will be followed under this pattern. So it will follow cold light in the morning, neutral light, and then followed by the warm light. So this is the actual hardware that is developed in the form of prototype by the team. On the top, what you see is 6500 Kelvin CCT. In the middle is 3000 Kelvin, and when they both are on, this is how they will look like. Now, what we do is we change the intensity of these two sources in such a way that we get the resultant values as desired. On the left hand side, what you see is actually a small module of SSL, that is solid state lighting. So ISS also has switched to solid state lighting very recently. This is the first prototype of cabin lighting system hardware, where you also see the dimmer and the CCT control, and there are switches for a couple of lights here. So there are 5 SSLs right now identified and 3 spotlights. This is the prototype performance. So on the left hand side, you clearly can identify how it looks when you are at 3000 Kelvin, and when you switch it to 6000 Kelvin on the bottom right, how it functions. On the top right, what you see is a combination of both the LEDs for a specific color temperature being produced, which is 5000 Kelvin. On the bottom left, what you see is a simulation of light in a specific software which aids to this, and you can see the effect of putting SSL at a specific location, having a specific illuminance intensity and a specific color. So we work in both domains. We work analytically as well as we verify it physically in the laboratory. We are also coming up with a couple of labs where we'll be having much better setups. One of them will be a dark room where these light experiments can be carried out in much more with higher fidelity. So this is the spot illumination I was talking about. On the right hand side top, what you see is actual spotlight causing that spot. On the right hand side is the simulation of the same. Bottom center also is a simulation of the intensity for a 3D domain. So some of the portable illumination as torchlight will be going in space, and this is also part of the survival kit. There will be a survival kit with each astronaut. So you might be aware there is a kit available with every fighter pilot, just in case they have to land in a terrain which is not Indian. So here also there will be a survival kit which carries a lot of things, and one of them is this torchlight. Visible flash beacon. So as I said earlier, for the recovery aid, just in case you are landing in night time, you need to have a way to identify where they are to locate them visually. So FAA guidelines are followed here, which suggests that if you have got a white flashing beacon which flashes for less than 100 milliseconds every second, then that will be called as a distress signal. So anybody seeing this kind of signal would want to come and help you. So this is the visible flash beacon designed for the purpose. You can see there are 6 modules fitted together to have a large intensity generated for 20 milliseconds, which can be seen from a distance of 5 kilometers. So that is the kind of intensity we'll be generating. It's almost like a flashlight, but only much more aggressive in power. On the bottom, what you see is a theoretical representation of how the light intensity should be distributed. Because typically a chopper would be approaching first after the landing, and the chopper would be somewhere at a height of 3 to 4 kilometers, it may be. So we need to cover the entire horizon in terms of elevation angles as well as azimuth angles. So we have got 3 such modules, 120-degree apart, which is shown on the top right. So the blue color package is the controller, and that small module can be seen on the one of the arms. So this is the visible flash beacon single module, which was being experimented in the lab. The most significant part in crew communication would be cabin system would be crew display system. So this is the first prototype of crew display system that has just come out few days back, where you see a hardware just like a computer screen, but it actually does several other functions. So typical purpose will be to identify the situational awareness. So what is situational awareness? Just imagine you are in a place where there is no way to identify where you are, what you are doing, what is the thing going around. So all the vital parameters that an astronaut is supposed to know is given to him by the primary display. So this is the first point of contact between astronauts and people sitting on ground. So typically it provides a comprehensive information to the crew about the status of all aspects of the spacecraft. For example, what is the oxygen level, what is the pressure level, what is the health parameter going on right now, where is the mission right now, what is the altitude, lat long, things like that. This is the primary mode of information gathering for the crew and take sound decisions for their day-to-day activities. The design consideration for this would be to achieve very high reliability. Work should work at a very low power and mass. It should have a suitable illumination, and it should be changeable, because if you have dimmed the lights, what will happen is you want a lower intensity, but if it is full light there, you want to have the higher intensity. it should have wide enough viewing angles so that person sitting on the right hand side can see the display on the left hand side as well. Readability should be ensured. The font cannot be too big or too small. If they're too small, it is hard to read. If it is too big, less information is accommodated within the given space and things like that. There is also provision of remote control. What happens is when you're lifting off, there are very high Gs experienced by the astronauts. At that time, just imagine if you are in a scenario of 5 Gs, the hand which will otherwise be around 5 kgs will suddenly become 25 kgs. So what it means is that 5 kg hand lifting experience will suddenly become like a hand which is lifting 20 kg of dumbbell in your hand. Now, under this circumstances, if you want to the astronauts to take their hands up and push a button, it will be a bit difficult. So what we do is we put a remote just next to their armrest so that without additional efforts, they can actually do the job of navigating the display panel. So there are certain aspects of a crew display system. First is we don't go for gaudy colors, though we can, but the literature and standards suggest that you need to stick to only one or two colors. For example, here you will see that most of the background is blue. Some parameters are shown as green. Only the parameter which is going out of bound is shown as red. So red is used very cautiously here because it should indicate certain aspects of mission. So in this case, it is out of bound mission requirement. So it is being used sparingly. Same way, the illuminance, as I discussed, should be of the order as required. Redundancy. There are two displays. Both the displays can show the same data, but their page navigation is independent of each other. So here what we have is certain buttons are available in the periphery. When you press a specific button on top, you get to see the information regarding that specific page. So page navigation is available on the top. On the right and left, the buttons are available for specific tasks. So on the right hand side, if you see, you have taken the page of camera. So which camera you want to see is selectable on the right hand side and left hand side button. But which page you want to see can be selected from the top buttons. We use standardization for the content. What it means is that during the training, the astronaut should be well aware of what information to look at what place. So accordingly, it should not change here and there. For example, if I'm seeing a page 1 here, then all the pages should carry that information at the same position. If specific color is identified, let's say for a lap, then it should not change at a later stage, or that color should not be used for other purpose. Same way, the feedback also is taken from astronauts, and that becomes a very vital information how they want the system to be. Because I, as engineer, can envisage something as per my comfort, convenience, and understanding, but it is the astronauts who are going to use it. So they have a good deal of or good share of say in identifying these page layouts, and even in case of engineering also. Same way, the qualification of this entire hardware has to be happen in a very specific way. All the libraries have to go through a certification process, the software certification and hardware certification process, and we need to make sure that in no case this thing fails under any circumstances. So that is called robust error handling mechanism to ensure the reliability. So this is how the entire display is laid out. You can see the cabin environment page on the top right. Remote control is in the middle, which I was talking about. Camera monitoring can be seen on the bottom, and there is one large area display layout. There are various displays available. Now it is frozen that we'll be going for a smaller display for the want of mass efficiency. Otherwise, large area displays also are available where you definitely fit more information into one display. This is overall crew console with two displays. Apart from the display, there will be buttons which are hardwired. We are trying to reduce the number of buttons requirement by replacing them with the display control. So this is just an initial, I would say, layout which we have started with, but it is supposed to change further and become better and better with days. The last thing is cameras. So when we have this mission, it's a demonstration of engineering and technology. We must witness this entire activity in a good sense. So for that, we need a couple of cameras on board. The first purpose of the camera would be video conferencing. We need to talk to astronauts. They need to see us. We need to see them. We also need to make sure that when they are sleeping, things are in order. So like a CCTV camera, we need to have a cabin watch. The astronauts would be taking some pictures either inside or maybe of Earth, of space. So for that, a handheld system has to be in place. Same way, event monitoring cameras are planned where we'll be able to see how the parachute are getting deployed when the CM and SM is getting separated at the time of re-entry, just before that, and how the solar panel or carbon pointing antenna is getting deployed. All these things are crucial events and must be recorded, and mostly they are sent in real time for view. Another aspect is the ruggedization of commercial cameras. In ISRO, we mostly develop the technologies from the core, but sometimes it is wise to take what is available in the market and suit it for the purpose. That not only saves time and resources, it also helps in various ways. So here also we are identifying certain commercial cameras which can be ruggedized so that we can use it in a space environment. Mostly commercial hardware is not suitable to be used as it is because it is not meant for that purpose. For example, the vacuum compatibility, the temperature ranges, sustainability of the vibration and things like that. So these things we need to make sure by certain modifications in the hardware that we give it enough strength and ability to perform and sustain the environments we are expecting in space or during the launch. So this is a simulation in the software of camera location. We were trying to identify where we should put the cameras. So instead of having the actual camera or the unit, what we are trying to do is simulating it in the software. So this gives us pretty good idea of possible locations of the camera, their field of view, their distances and things like that. So this is pretty much from my side. Thank you very much for this wonderful session.
Thank you very much for this informative session. I'm sure all of us had a lot to learn from this illustrious talk. Naturally, a lot of students have been rather fascinated with this topic and would like to ask the panel some questions to gain a deeper insight regarding this domain. Our team has compiled a set of some of these questions which we would like to ask you guys. So the first one is a rather technical question. It states that while traveling in space, how is the path decided and what factors are taken into consideration?
Yeah, can you repeat it? I didn't get it.
Yes, the question states that while traveling in space, how is the path decided as in a particular rocket? How is the path decided for its entire orbit? And what factors are to be taken for its consideration?
You mean orbit determination? Or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Orbit determination.
So basically, all these manned missions generally they are in a LEO orbit, low Earth orbit, and the generally in the range, as I mentioned, from 275 to 400 kilometer. So we started with 275 kilometer, and the path. Once you decide the altitude, then accordingly the number of orbits per day and all that will get automatically decided based on the orbit time. So generally orbit time of around 90 to 100 minutes. In that mostly it is LEO orbit, means it will go from North Pole to South Pole depending on the inclination. So either it could be generally 90, all satellites are generally 90.1 or that sort of degree inclination instead of exactly going in a polar orbit from north to south. Slight inclination is there. Similarly, there are various inclined orbits where the requirement is that we want to revisit a particular portion of Earth. So when we do some surveillance satellites, so they need to look at certain parts of our border areas. So accordingly, we decide the inclination of the satellite so that they can have a revisit of same area or similar area, nearby areas again and again with a higher frequency. So these all factors go into the various orbit simulation aspects. But as far as manned mission is concerned, generally this 275 to 400 kilometers, this is the typical orbit range, altitude range in which the missions operate. Anurag, you would like to add something?
So when you have a path decision, first thing is you have identified your spaceport. which you want it to be as near to equator as possible. Second thing is direction is always from west to east, so that the rotation of Earth can give you certain advantage in terms of increasing the velocity to start with, right? Third thing in the consideration would be you always want to stay within ocean waters, so that just in case of mishap, you don't go head down onto some region of population. So typically in ISRO also what we do is we have a specific maneuver to avoid Sri Lanka. So whenever we are in orbit which is going polar, we can directly head towards south. But instead of that, we take a small turn going around Sri Lanka, avoiding the habitat there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. A second question is slightly socioeconomic in nature. It states that there are a lot of current humanitarian issues which we are facing. There's poverty around us, and there's multiple other issues which are bothering us. In such a time, should space really be a priority? And if in case it is, how does it actually help us in enriching our lives?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Dr. Sarabhai, when he envisioned Indian space program, he said our main focus is only going to be man and society, which is what finally it boils down to when we consider socio-economic condition of the country or the people of the country. So considering all that aspect, but as you see the geopolitical or geostrategic scenario nowadays, so unless you have some sort of technological power, nobody is going to listen to you, or even your weightage in various multinational forums or in regional forums is a function of the military might you have, the technological prowess.
Hello, sir. Are you there?
Yeah, I guess we lost connection. I add to it. There is this question is a standing question, I would say. So whenever a country like India takes up work in space, we are always asked this question, and there is a very straightforward answer to this. That if we don't do space technology, let's say, will we solve the problem of poverty and socio-economic conditions? No. The reason is adding money to the system doesn't solve it. It is being solved by doing certain things. And as sir explained, most of the things that ISRO has been doing goes towards the societal benefits. For example, crop prediction. So if I'm able to identify that certain crops are being sold by farmers in a certain region and the cost of this item will be less when it is reaped, because there is a lot of sowing there, then what will happen is it will help the entire ecosystem of the agriculture produce management to identify how we can redistribute this entire thing so that farmers get the appropriate price for that. So wherever we see this aspect being addressed, we would say that we are trying to reduce poverty or attend to the socio-economic aspects of our country. So it is otherwise that if you don't do space technology, you definitely are not attending to socio-economic issues.
Right, sir. That's extremely well put, and I think we can fairly conclude that space exploration is indeed a need of the hour, at least for this particular moment. With this, I think we can come to an end of this brave venture. I would like to thank the panel for taking out the time to address the curious minds. Anurag sir, Nilesh sir. I'm sure all of us got to know a lot of things about the Indian space mission, the Gaganyaan mission, and its associated research opportunities as well. I would like to further thank Professor Ghosh and Professor Dasgupta for extending the obligation to talk to you guys and for setting up this whole thing. With this, we conclude the second version of the open box. Thank you very much, sir, for coming live with us.
Thank you. Thanks to you.
Thank
and
you.
on behalf of Desai sir as well.
Yes.
He has come back.
I think, yeah, Desai sir has come back.
Yeah, it got distant.
Hello, sir.
Shall I continue with that?
Sure, sir.
So as I said, it is, although our initial vision was that doing everything for man and society, from that, in view of the other requirement imperatives or the necessity of the current times, where India wants or aspires to be a regional or a global superpower, so getting some technological handle is very important. And we have, as I said, acquiring technology through the help of the other countries or doing our own indigenous solution. So we are trying to match both the things, with the indigenous component now being given the more priority.
Right. So that is extremely well put, and that's very much goes in sync with what Anurag sir just said. With this, sir, we would like to conclude today's version of the Open Box. We would like to extend our thanks to both of you for taking out the time to address this crowd. Thank you very much for coming live with us, sir. With this, we would call it a day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
See you.